you talked about getting a woman, right? It's like not getting, right. I don't see it that way, right. I don't really want to like get a woman, right. um I mean, I it's impossible to I mean, if I go out, I know that maybe I couldn't say I know in my heart, because I'm not that connected to my heart. If I were connected to my heart to a larger degree, I wouldn't have that many addictions, right? Especially to the horse, right? It's like it's almost like eating, right? You have to eat. If you don't eat, you die, right? Even though I don't necessarily enjoy it that much, right? It's ridiculous. It is so. I, I don't. I feel that the more effort I put into my practice, the stronger the resistance becomes, right? It's like if I want to meditate, if for like a certain period of time, right? I meditate a lot, and then I go outside. I see several uh, gorgeous women, right, appearing, right, every day, several, right, all looking like a Miss Universe, different races, right. Um, at least I perceive them to be so, right. It doesn't matter if they were objectively this or that, right, because life, this fake reality is completely subjective, right. Um, I mean, even the way I see myself now, it's completely different from the way I saw myself, let's say five years ago, or 10 years ago. Um, I'm actually like, before I was thinking about like all kinds of bullshit, right? Like how to be confident. Um, yeah, I, I never really care much about my appearances, but I did think about confidence, right? But of course now I know it's bullshit, right? I don't need no confidence, man. Shit, only retard needs confidence. Um, so yeah, I mean if she comes, she comes, right? I'm not gonna do anything to get her, right? Um, um, I mean, if something is to happen, even if I stay the fuck in this room, it's gonna come to me, right? Even if I don't get out of my room ever, right? Something is gonna come to me. I mean, I was never really that interested in what others have to say, right? Unless I hold them in really high regard. So I've always been by myself 99.99% of the time, and I figured a lot of things out just in a small dark room. So a lot of ideas just came to me just out of nowhere. Um, it's just something clicks all the time. But when it comes to mundane things, of course, there are the spirituality is a more profound pursuit, right? So is it's almost I need to go with the flow a while. It's like I'm trying to do something, but part of it is not up to me, right? It's like growing a plant, right? You put the seed in the soil, you cultivate the soil, right? You water the seed, but whether the seed grows to become a mature plant depends on um, the uh, the DNA, right? The DNA of the seed, the the nutrient levels of the soil, the weather, etc. Right? So in the spiritual practice is kind of like this, right? You do what you can do, but the results, there are many aspects that are not cannot directly perceive, right? It's just like the seed the seed didn't perceive anything, but when all the factors when they come together, it starts to grow, right? It starts to morph into something else. So I think the pursuit of nirvana or nibbana, liberation, enlightenment, or however you want to call it, is similar. Um, and Yeah, right now I have no intention to try to talk to the that the single mother, or any hole that check me out in my area, or other areas, right? I get checked out even if I'm out and about, so not just in my area. That is it's just more obvious in my area because I run into them. I run into like one or two of them uh, every few days, right? And Well, what else do I want to say? I really don't like making shorts, but sometimes it's hard for me to make a video longer than 3 minutes. Yeah, I notice also I'm focusing on my breath, right? I'm also trying to keep the tongue like that. So I don't know how they translate it in English, but in Chinese it's in my dialect, not Mandarin. I speak another dialect actually. My Mandarin isn't that good actually. It's a sit tỉnh sờ ngọt, sit tongue sit tỉnh sờ ngọt, just the area, the palate right behind the front teeth. So it's like a connection between it's like the small circulation in Taoism, right? So it connects the missing part. Yeah. So I was focusing on my breath while doing this, right? And I notice I have more energy. I have a level of fullness in my trunk. Um, I I feel that I'm not as hungry, um, which is amazing because I don't like to eat. I feel that I don't need to sleep as much. I'm less hungry, and even though I'm not, unfortunately, I'm still messing around from time to time. So I want to cut it out, but I I I I don't know when I'm gonna completely cut it out. So yeah, I'm gonna just be really mindful of this. So it kind of ties into the four establishings of mindfulness in Buddhism. So it's part of the body mindfulness. You're mindful of where you place any of your body parts, where your body parts are, and your breath, right? So because if you don't breathe, you cannot feel any part of your body very soon, right? So if you are mindful of your breath, it's when the mindfulness of the breath advances, is you are more mindful of the whole body automatically. So the rest is mindfulness of feelings. Um, Basically, it's just pleasurable feelings or painful feelings, and ne- neither pleasure nor painful feelings, right? Neither pleasurable nor painful feelings. So it's kind of like delusion, because our minds automatically block out feelings that don't have an emotional tone. If it's not pleasurable or painful, the mind kind of just ignores it. So it falls into a kind of delusion. But no feeling is exactly neutral. Um, so we do need to be mindful of neutral feelings, but they are not exactly neutral, but they are um, let's just say we need to be aware of them. And after feelings, is the perception and memory. Basically, it's just your ideas about things. Your like calling something this or that. Your memory. So if you are conscious of you're mindful of your perception, you realize that a lot of your perception is completely wrong. Um, and then the last one is um, mindfulness of mental qualities. Um, basically, it's just in the scripture. It actually talks about. It actually refers to the five hindrances, right? The five hindrances as to the hindrances that come up most frequently during meditation. The first is sensuality. Sensuality includes greed, lust, etc. Right? Just wanting something. The second is ill will, not wanting something, right? Not wanting something, anger, hatred, etc. Sloth and torpor. It's like sometimes you're falling asleep, right? But you think that your mind is getting more concentrated, but you are just falling asleep. You're drifting into a kind of delusion. Um, and then restlessness and anxiety. Um, it's kind of like fear. So just something that causes you to be restless and anxious. It could be a happy kind of feeling. Um, if you are always like happy, it according to Chinese medicine, it actually hurts. It will damage your heart, the function of your heart. So different temperaments will affect different organs, right? So fear. If you're always fear, you will damage your kidneys. So etc. Right? So restlessness and anxiety, and the last one is actually skeptical doubt. Skeptical doubt as in whether the practice is effective or is it real? Is it not real? Etc. But skeptical doubt is in a way you can say it's easy to transcend, because if you are exploring something, you don't really need to think about too much, right? Because as you explore, you'll get your answer, right? Doubt arises when you think too much. Thinking causes doubt. So it's been my experience. So I don't think much about anything right now. Apart from I actually think about mundane things more than I think about the practice, unless I'm reading some scriptures, which is which I don't understand, or I don't understand it in enough ways, because you can interpret one thing in many ways, right? And and all the different ways can prove useful in some ways. So I don't know what I just said. I've just been rambling. Probably if I say something that that's wrong, or not that correct, or ambiguous, I'll I hope you guys excuse me. Okay. Um, okay. I'll end this here.
such an asshole.
Only because I go to a gym, I'm like, yeah, I see this. I could see this. So we got a field report. Hello, Cappy. It's a pleasure to meet you. I wanted to take this opportunity to submit a field report that may offer a glimpse into the social dynamics at a gym in an urban environment. For context, I reside in a major metro and frequent a few of the local brand name gyms 6 days out of the work week after work. I'm typically at the gym from one part of time to other part of time on the regular. For context, I spent the better part of 10 plus years in the gym setting and have encountered every gym stereotype you can imagine. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly characteristics when it comes to the field of fitness, particularly in a public setting. In this environment, I dare say that I look the part. I know what I'm going to the gym to get done. I prefer not to waste time. This mental state and attitude has garnered the positive attention of other men and staff that know me and seek my assistance or feedback in another regimen. Yeah, I see your regular shows. 6 times a week. I'm generally the guy people don't hesitate to request a spot for their lift. Part of my interest in lifting weights was inspired by Lou Ferrigno. And I can't say why. I can't say why. You have a thing. Not a gay thing, and that would be fine too. I just got to keep you anonymous. That's all. There's something unique about him. But yeah, the Incredible Hulk, right? Quick demographics about myself. I rate myself a 6 out of 10. You're youngish. You're 14% body. You're only a 6 out of 10 at 14%? Are you sure? Pretty humble, I'm going to imagine. My build is catered more towards endurance and outdoor survival. I'm not the biggest nor the strongest or hardly the fastest around, but I'm capable, well-rounded. Having established some working knowledge about myself, social aspects of the gym can be flippant when it comes to the woman. This environment was very different from when I first started lifting in my teens. Back then, you could generally approach or strike up a small conversation or inquire about techniques with some female members of the gym, and she would generally be receptive or at least very polite. There was an established dynamic of trust and familiarity that made it safe and comfortable. These days, however, the environment has shifted heavily towards an established hierarchy where the top performing men get rewarded with positive attention from desirable women. And see, when I go to the gym, I haven't really seen any of the, you see it here and there, but it's a smaller environment. It's a controlled environment. And I guess in every environment, a hierarchy must form of some kind. But it when I see it, I'm like, yeah, this is a lot like school. Except I can leave anytime I want. I'm not here. I'm not forced to be here. I don't give a fuck what people think. Like, and people are very polite at the gym. No one's like trying to get in a fight with you or anything like that. But you could see it. I've seen it where the girls, they got their little butt outfit on. And then the guy goes and talks and like, yeah, game recognizes game. I see him over there. But I'll tell you this, even just being social. I hate being social at the gym with the guys. Or the guys a little bit more. I don't mind. Hey, what's up, man? Hey. But then you got to have a conversation. And then because of the modern day male-female dynamics, like you're like, oh, hey, how you doing? You talk to a girl, and then it's like you see them again, like, I don't really want to talk to you, and they really don't want to talk to you either. I just want to get my gym workout done. But now you got like, hey, yeah. Whereas I think when you go to the gym, now to you it might also be your social outlet. But I like the fact I don't have to talk to anyone. I want to be left the fuck alone because that's one less obligation I have to be polite and civil and cordial. Not that I'm rude to people. By this, I mean the most attractive men with Olympian physiques that have demonstrated their ability. This is also strongly correlated with steroid use. It's also expected that men deduce which women they are allowed to engage or even acknowledge. The entitlement and attitude has become profoundly delusional for a staggering majority of women in these gym settings, as one would reasonably guess. If you're going there and they've got Olympian level type of guys, I mean, that's Olympic level. I have opted to simply not engage in these women unless they engage themselves. This has saved me many accounts of headaches that I could have avoided in the past when this dynamic was changing years ago. I wish I had simply observed the same mindset when it came to this particular situation. I have noted that in my particular location, closest to my work and home, is a hot spot it's a training gym for the trainers, for the staff, and frequently swaps out staff to other locations across the city. At the beginning of the year, there was a new trainer that I'll refer to as Sarah. She was a young woman that was unquestionably in shape. It appeared to have relaxing and pleasant demeanor. If I had to give a rating, I would offer a solid 7 out of 10 without makeup. This was unusual given that most of the female trainers that are hired tend to be obese boss bitches. Are they? See, I've noticed that. I've seen trainers, and a lot of half of them I'm looking at, I'm like, what right do you have? Like, you're fat. What, are you kidding me? Shut up. I've seen that. Like, training, you mean someone just holds you and tells you, holds you to a regimen and tells you what to do? I guess you don't have to be in shape, but I'm sorry. If I ever got an out of shape trainer, I'm like, no, I want my money back. You're going to give me somebody who's in shape. It's like taking health advice from a fat person or taking financial advice from a poor person. And enjoy the power dynamic of telling people what to do. Undoubtedly, she was quite popular with the blue pill soft men who were into fitness. Due to some of my past experiences, I did not engage with her from the get-go like older members did. On a side note, I also noticed that she was vigilant of my presence in this environment, would pay attention to my interactions with other members. Sometime, at a certain time, someone set off a thing, and an event happened. A thing happened, the staff responded kindly, and because you really like your staff, you thank them. This was especially generous as the staff could have easily opted to make a different decision and call it a day. I made it a point of thanking each staff member that day for their work and allowing me to use the facilities. As I was leaving, I expressed my gratitude toward Sarah, who was working at the time. To my surprise, she was all too glad to strike up a conversation with me. This took me off guard because she was enthusiastic and warm. We chatted for a few minutes, and she said that she looked forward to catching up with me next time. Cool, I thought. The following week, I encountered Sarah again. Dude, I think you're a little autistic because you're giving way too many details. I don't know where these things are. It's irrelevant. There's like 80% truth. Not that you're lying about anything. Yeah, this all happens, but yeah, you're on the spectrum, man. You're on the spectrum. So maybe some of this is like lightning striking you. It has to be factored in. I've read thousands of requests, and it's like, yeah, my autist detector's going up. She struck up a conversation with me again and invited me to sit with her and chat, where the previous exchange was a few minutes. This exchange was easy, half an hour. She expressed an interest in my experience being, having that unique thing I had, and want to talk about it some more. Unfortunately, our conversation then, I'm trying to not identify you. Our conversation then changed towards religion and education. We shared some similar values that appeared to suggest that she was not a Democrat. The major downside in my mind was that she proclaimed a deep and profound regard for Jesus. Oh. Not linked below, I probably should link it below, is my essay called I Don't Want a Threesome with Jesus, The Christian's Guide to a Pro-Sex Marriage. And already when you get these girls, look, I'm for you being Christian and Jesus or whatever, but when they shove that in your face, one, they're not real Christians. Two, they use it because they don't want to have sex. Three, they use religion to protect themselves from everything else in the world. Yeah, Jesus freaks. Yeah, you got to look out for them. In her mind, she was using fitness to reach a high that brought her closer to her Savior. Homer backing away. This was perhaps a good indicator that I should have ran right then and there. Good. Okay, your bullshit detector is up too. She gave me her number and sent me YouTube videos that she wanted me to watch. I was impressed and hadn't experienced an encounter of this nature in the past. I reassured her that we get back to her to discuss the content that she shared with me. It's also important to recognize that there were younger female staff members working nearby that were present for our entire interaction. The following week, There was a noted change of behavior where she was suddenly busy and occupied with members for training. One of the days she asked me to wait. I had to run errands and let her know via text. Towards the end of the week, I ran into her again and inquired if she would be free to catch up and share thoughts on the content she sent me. She knew that she was busy with clients, but I requested I follow up for you. Text, great following day, sent her a message inquiry about her availability. What was once a warm and pleasant demeanor changed into guarded and defensive. You know what? There could be a billion reasons. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be the texting game and you said, no, I'm busy. I got it. You're honest about it. It could be she's wackadoo, but this is the problem at the gym. On paper, it sounds great to meet someone of the opposite sex at the gym. It really isn't. It really isn't, because if that relationship, even if it's a minor exchange like this, goes south, now it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And now I can't talk to that person. I gotta look out. Okay, can't sit here and work out because she's over there. She responded an hour later that she couldn't. She was fully booked with the time. I laughed and took a screenshot of our conversation. Another headache, I thought to myself. The following week, her demeanor changed towards being avoidant. It wouldn't surprise me. Anytime I walked into the facilities was nearby, she made sure to leave or excuse herself immediately. I thought it was a bit extreme, but I refrained from engaging and continued to focus on my regimen throughout the week. I also noticed that the gym manager was beginning to keep tabs on me. He was keeping tabs on when I would come in, who I would talk to, and when I would leave. Instead of getting angry at the situation, I realized that if I was a crazy nut job looking to gain the upper hand on perception, that I too would report a problematic situation with a male gym member. It also didn't help that I had military police type bags. Like, there's your autism. Now, see, I've seen like, and then I saw that, and then I saw it. Dude. If you notice a change of behavior, yes, but you're looking for changes in behavior. Rather than escalate, I kept my cool, made it a point to be respectful of the manager. Right, this is a nothing burger so far. At around this time, other members had noticed my interactions with this particular trainer in prior weeks. I want to know if there was anything romantic. Okay, see, and that's where your bullshit detector was not wrong. You were picking up on something. I kept it casual and shared that I was some back and forth, but that something had changed. I didn't know what was going on at the moment. Then I found out that she shot herself in the foot. I'm like, really? She shot herself in the foot? As it turned out, Sarah could be quite a mean girl with the female members in the gym. She developed a nasty habit of bullying older females into signing for gym memberships through negative and often public feedback. One of the female members that I'm friendly with got wind of my interactions and inquired, after hearing her story and figuring out her motives. What do you see? Yeah, this is all middle school now, both on your part and their part. This member proceeded to file a complaint. I knew right away that something was said because this prompted a deliberate change of behavior towards being antagonistic. The following week, Sarah would instead attempt to hold her ground and not move or leave when I was nearby. More than a few times, she's tried to stare me down and make a scene of something when there wasn't anything going on. My assumption is that she felt I was responsible for the older world and filed a complaint against her behavior. Within 2 weeks, she was gone. I'm not sure if she was just relocated to another facility or she'll be just fired. I have not seen her since, and I'm the once suspicious gym manager is now respectfully and regularly saying hello. That was a change in behavior. That was. I found out from another gym member afterwards that Sarah had allegedly attempted to slander my name with male corporate members who rushed to her support. Oh, there's the beta. See, you're overly analytical, but this time you caught it. I know a guy who dated a crazy psychopathic single mom, horrible woman. And then when he broke up with her because she was a horrible person, she went and just slandered this guy in the social group. And he lost the social group. Why? Because all the beta males wanted to fuck her. And I remember him, he was telling me, like, he had probably, he lost his support group. I'm like, yeah, it sucks, man. But don't worry, that entire group will go away. It was not long to be. That group was going to go away anyway. And then I asked him, like, God, what, 10 years later? I'm like, how's that go? Oh, yeah, she's fucked up. I'm like, oh, yeah, surprise. Supposedly, the few female staff members that I had comfortable rapport with called her out and defended my reputation. I haven't seen those particular corporate staff members in the meantime either. Now for the moment of introspection. What the hell was that all about? Middle school bullshit. This is why you keep your head down at the gym. You do not shit where you eat. You do not. You should be able to talk to someone, right? Sure, fine. That's why you don't, man. That's why you don't. The gym is middle school. It is. It's scary to consider that at one of the few prominent points I've been able to walk away relatively unscathed. The first is how easily I could have lost this debacle and been removed and had those women not spoke on my behalf. I know you're paranoid to a certain level, but you were in this case. You're right. Go in, lift your weights. Be hey, how if you know the manager. Hi, Jim. How are you? You go in, you lift your weights. You leave. Even though there was no emotional, let alone physical altercation between me and this woman, my reputation of consistency in arena was not backed by the male counterparts who performed, but rather by women who very could have easily opted to say nothing. My other speculation is how much of this could have been negatively influenced by the younger female desk staff I noted earlier. Did they intervene and gossip? See, now you're submitting yourself. You're now suffering middle school when you don't have to. You're overanalyzing this. I mean, not that the analysis isn't there, but the reason you leave middle school is so you never have to go back. Your guess is as good as mine. If I can give this woman the benefit of the doubt, I'm also wondering if she was looking to secure another client and realized too little too late that she crossed professional boundaries in an attempt to secure my interest in her training. You're on the spectrum, man. Perhaps the most critical, most damning point of all this is I simply could have avoided this entire situation if I had simply ignored this woman and proceeded on my day back during the incident. I hope this goes to show that despite what appears to be excellent hardware and perhaps even great software, the piss poor firmware can render all that meaningless just an instant just because. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your willingness to listen to this tale. I was initially hesitant to submit this story right away as if I wasn't sure if there would be any further developments, namely from my corporate or manager. You're worrying about shit. You should see a therapist. I mean, not that you can't function in society, but I think you really, I would recommend Dr. David Maloney, but he's busy. Mage Consulting. I got to look him up. Mage Counseling. Mindful Mage Counseling. He's in Alberta. Tell him I sent you. Since enough time had elapsed, I thought it was safe to provide this.
Morale is really low because, we've been told that we're making great games that players love and that we're doing well, and to have this suddenly hit us has been a huge shock to us.
It sucks.
We make all kinds of games, all kinds of people love.
It'd be really nice if we could just get back to work and make them games that will define a generation of video gaming.
I worked at ZeniMax for about 5 years. We are having a march and a rally to demand dignity and respect and an end to the cycle of layoffs.
Yeah, gamers also demand dignity and respect. That's why you got fucking fired. And no one is gonna cry a single tear for you because you disgust us. In any case, remember when we talked about this 2 days ago, a day ago? It's been a while, right? Well, now this has gone super viral. Previously, it was already going viral. Now, it is breaking containment. Hirohei's original post has already almost 10 million views. When we covered last time, it was just 1 million. And then the situation was already bad. Because these people, needless to say, were relentlessly mocked for, well, everything that they deserved. And probably not even as much as they did deserve it in the first place. The situation was something special. But, in any case, now it's getting worse. it is just getting worse. The situation is out of control, and I do absolutely love it. New people are understanding how absolutely pointless it is to be a Bethesda fan. If apathy didn't kill Bethesda previously, this definitely will. These people are representing absolutely everything wrong with the industry. Starting from admitting that they're in a literal echo chamber, because this is what the first person said right here. Oh, we're making great games that players love. Which players? Where? What are these games? And actually, it just even gets funnier the longer you look into this. Again, these are our protagonists. Literally communist grandma. Or garbage. This is a person who actually had talent before joining Bethesda, and the moment they joined, they probably gained a couple of pounds and lost all of the talent that there was in the first place. It is truly amazing. In this March, you can barely see a normal person because they're all insane and they hate us. So again, never feel bad about the bad things that are happening with these game companies. They are collapsing, they are shutting down, they are firing people because of a reason. And that reason mostly is because they don't appreciate us. They don't like us. Because we just don't perceive the same values as them. And that's why they hate us? Well, if you're gonna be this petty, well, we are also gonna be that petty. We can even be pettier. That's the beautiful part. Okay? And, I mean, everyone absolutely hates what they are seeing here. And the situation is bad. Because this is the current state of Western AAA developers. This is not just an Bethesda problem. This is a whole industry-wide problem. Remember that roughly 30 to 45% of people currently working in the games industry are admitting that they are non-binary, double-spirit, totem my chivalry timbers type of feature creatures. And needless to say, that is insane, because the LGBTQ garbage soup represents less than 1% of the humans in the world. And yet the games industry is somehow 35 times, I almost said percent, times more representative of this shit than anything else? That is insane. That is absolute, pure, unadulterated insanity. And you know me, boys, you know me. I'm a progressive person. I love this stuff. I'm a black trans woman, if you did not know, by the way. So I do get the N-word pass. It is what it is. I didn't make the rules. But, as a black trans woman, I can tell you this right now. This is not right. This is not good. Okay? I love representation, but it should be accurate. Gaming should represent 1% of these individuals, or less, or the 0.1 that the world represents, so it's fair. Okay? So, fire literally 99 out of 100 of these people and never fire them again. Because we want to be representation, and I want to represent the world, and the world does not want you. And I think that's beautiful. I support this. So many people in the QRTs going, oh, my Fauci gamers are so hicking cruel. Well, that's a strange sentence. If you did not want to get laid off, maybe you should have made a better games instead of being busy shoving your woke Marxist agenda into them. Sucks to suck. True, real. Go look for a new job, comrade. Or best, don't. Just don't. Just don't. It's fine. You don't have to work. You don't have to work, especially in the games industry. The situation is insane. One of the funniest things is probably the fact that we had this person right here. And Demi on TV, great guy, friend of the channel. He's a complete chill, but it's fine. We love each other. I'm engaged with him at this point. He's the mother. Looked at the LinkedIn status of these people, and most of them obviously are just straight up lying to you. Everyone knows that these people are not making the games. They didn't make a single game. This person wasn't probably even born when the good stuff actually came out. He was late for goddamn Skyrim. These people, look at this. Joined January 2022, 4 years. Worked on Starfield. That's right, boys. Starfield. These are not the people that are bringing you a single game that you want, you played, or you loved. They are lying. The best part about this, they are literally just there and they're lying. I fully believe none of these people are even doing any work at the company. Okay? I fully believe that. And again, if you don't hate these people enough, this is just a reminder. This is by Nerdrotic. Bethesda thought it was a good idea to let us know how they feel about Charlie Kirk and even mourning him. And this is, by the way, not random. It's a very short, sweet, to the point clip. The fact of the matters when it was posted.
Oh, nice place. You don't care much about these fascists, do you?
Yes, by the way, Indiana Jones, The Circle of Nobody Cares. Literally no one bought it. Absolute disaster and failure. It's pretty funny when you compare the people working in games that are actually successful, decent, and loved by people versus, you know, when it's not. This is the CEO of Azure Lane. I don't know who she is, but I do want to marry her, and it's understandable why I feel. Now, I granted also do not know who this is, but I extremely do not want to marry them. For obvious reasons, again. So yeah, this is just a comparison. It's almost unbelievable how much wrong the saying "don't judge a book by its cover" is, honestly. I have been saying this for years. I'm trying to get this patented, but my saying is always judge a book by its cover. You're gonna be right 99% of the time, and that one time out of 100 you're wrong. It's not gonna even matter. I have lived my life with this approach for the past, I don't know how many years, honestly. At least 3 or 4. And I have not regretted it a single time. It has made my life so unbelievably more easy. In fact, it's absolutely crazy. 10 seconds in, and there's a transsexual named Juniper. Yes, we know. Juniper's a great gal, they say. I don't believe it, but they... Great stuff. Juniper, friend of the channel. Amazing. It's 10 out of 10. Apparently, the only way to get Bethesda employees off their asses is to fire them. I mean, that honestly also barely worked. Bethesda fired them all. True, real, or based in real. Oh yeah. Actually, that was Razor Fist, excuse me. But it doesn't matter too much. Modern video games. The consultant, the QA, the localizers, the investors, Jesus Christ, the journos, and the writers / fetishists. I mean, the fact about the writers was very on point, honestly. It's pretty insane. It's honest. This is not even a meme. This is real life. This is real life. But granted, instead of this guy, it should have been Larry Ellison, and then we would be full circling this. It is legit. This is the problem. These activists just infiltrate every single company because they have an extreme proclivity joining HR. Boys, listen. We need to start joining HR, okay? A single one of us chuds joining HR could probably fix it in a year. Because let's be real, the people at HR are not going to be able to do anything against you because you're also HR. It's beautiful. Okay? At least it's a little bit funny of the memes. I know we already watched this, but this does put a smile on my face, so we're watching it again.
After the second battle of Hoover Dam, Xbox fired most of the Obsidian team and replaced them with H-1B visa workers. Ordered to add gay marriage to the next Fallout as part of their DEI quota. The new team accidentally wed Arcade and Veronica, retconning 2 of Fallout's most beloved gay icons in the process. A classic case of having one job to do, but not understanding the assignment. After the
Yeah. The reason that this happens so much is that the people making this hate the source material. You can, my favorite example of this is obviously Hollywood when they ever need to adapt a game or a book or whatever. The Hollywood writers are always, nah, this book that has literally hundreds of millions of fans worldwide, I can do a better job. Fuck The Witcher. Yeah, I can do it better. I'm not even gonna care what the source. Then make your own stupid movie or series. Why do you need to subvert everything? We hate you. Oh yeah. And then we have things like this. 10 years ago, Lindsay and I were working with Bethesda on a regular basis and traveling to events with them 2 to 3 times a year. This inside of the studio looked completely different back then. It was loaded with talented professionals, and we worked with some of the most respectable people you could imagine. We certainly saw a few eccentric types here and there, which is, by the way, normal. But there wasn't a single person who would look like this. These people are straight up cartoons. I would call them a little bit different type of tunes, but it is what it is. But boys, listen, it's not all bad, because at the end of the video, remember, like the video right now, but at least something funny happened. Marathon is trending. That's right. Marathon is trending because someone literally said Marathon haters showing Steam charts. Man, these people just can't shut up about the Steam charts, huh? Meanwhile, Marathon community. And this is under the song Hard Choice or Hard Life or whatever it is. And people are relentlessly mocking this, obviously, because this is a shill account, obviously, and no one cares. Because, yes, this perfectly encapsulates what Marathon is. Like, 2 dudes dancing in a room and pretending that they're having fun, while everyone knows that they're insane. Marathon, by the way, is under 5k concurrent player peak in the last 24 hours, so self-high five, boys. We did it! The Chads reign supreme. The Chads will always reign supreme. So, like the video and have a nice day. Like it now. It takes less than a second and I do appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Hello guys and gals, and welcome! So today I have something special for you. This is going to be a video about the top 10 worst unique items in Diablo 2 Resurrected. Of course, if there are the best or the most underrated, well, there has to also be something that is considered the worst, the trashiest, most garbage unique items in the game that you probably want to throw on the ground. Do these items have any uses at all? Probably. But the real moral of the story is that they are among the worst unique items of Diablo 2 Resurrected. So without further ado, let's jump into the list. I'm not going to be presenting these in any specific order. I don't want to rank the worst items from number 1 to number 10, because that's just a waste of my time, because that's how bad they are. So without further ado, let's jump into the first of the horrible, horrible uniques, the Viper Fork. So you might be asking yourself, why is the Viper Fork one of the worst uniques in the game? Well, it's one of the worst uniques in the game for quite a large number of reasons. And we're going to go over them together. The Viper Fork is an elite base man catcher, which means it is extremely fast and it does decent melee damage. And as I said before, I'm not saying that a weapon can't be useful. It's still one of the worst unique items in the game, even if it can technically be useful. The problem is that even in its most optimal state, it is subpar below just about every other choice that you could possibly put on a character. For instance, if you had an Ariox Needle with +4 skills, it would easily be a lot better than a Viper 4 Command Catcher. And then we have to think about what the Viper 4 Command Catcher is trying to achieve. So it's trying to achieve high poison damage, right? So we got 325 poison damage over 10 seconds, which is laughable at level 71. It's absolutely gross in just the idea of 325 poison damage being enough. And this falls in line with a lot of unique items, because a lot of unique items that are based off of poison damage have really, really bad poison damage for their level. Only one item in the game that stands out for me that actually has poison damage that's high enough to actually be useful is the Jade Tando Chris, which I actually just recently made a video on. That has 180 at level 19. So I want you to put that in perspective. The Jade Tando has 180 poison damage at level 19, but this item barely has double that at level 71. Absolutely terrible amount of poison damage. On top of that, it also has a 15% chance to cast level 9 Poison Explosion on striking, which will not stack with the poison damage on the blade, or on the spear, rather. And this is also an issue because poison damage doesn't stack, and a lot of these poison damage weapons have poison damage from multiple sources, like a poison damage on the blade, like a casted ability, a charge, and a whole bunch of other things, and none of the poison effects stack together. The only special thing that this weapon has that honestly makes it anywhere near considerable for any kind of character is the fact that the poison explosion will consume corpses. So technically, very technically, you could use the Viper 4 Command Catcher as a way to absorb corpses. But you would be much better off using something like Redemption, or just simply some cold damage, so the monsters explode, or explode into shards of ice. There's a lot of ways to get rid of corpses, and I just don't really see this as being one of them. Even in its optimal form, which is the ethereal form, it's still not higher damage than most other melee weapons that you can put on a mercenary. For instance, an Insight Polearm would still be better. A Infinity would be better. A Obedience Mancatcher would be 1,000 times better. Obedience Mancatcher is literally godlike by compared to this thing. The only reason that you would ever conceivably put this weapon on a mercenary, in my opinion, is if you didn't have anything else to put on him, and this was the only thing you had. If you were a ladder character who's just starting the ladder, and you happen to find an ethereal Viper 4 Command Catcher, and you don't have anything else to put on your mercenary at that point, then by all means, throw it on your merc. But know that as soon as you get anything better, and it is very easy to get anything better, it's going straight in the garbage. And that brings us to the next item on the list, Radamant's Sphere. So Radamant's Sphere is another one of those unique items that just doesn't really work out. I don't really know what exactly they were thinking when they tried to make Radamant's Sphere, but the moral of the story is that it's not really a good shield and nobody really wants to use it. It has a lot of issues. It goes with a poison theme, and like a lot of the items that go with a poison theme, they tend to fail because poison itself doesn't work well. Poison explosion charges is one thing that a lot of people probably aren't going to use. Level 6 Poison Explosion does relatively no poison damage at level 50, and on top of that, despite the fact that it has an AoE effect, if you've ever actually seen Poison Explosion, the Poison Explosion is so small that it hits basically nothing. So even if you were to use it, there's a very good chance you wouldn't even hit anything with it when you used it. I don't know why the radius of Poison Explosion is so terribly small, but it's just not worth the effort. On top of that, it doesn't really have any resistances except for poison resistance. At level 50, you're well on your way into Nightmare difficulty, where the resistance penalties are starting to hit you. And by the time you reach Hell difficulty, the resistance penalties have gotten really, really bad. And this is a huge issue for a shield that has no resistances. If you've ever played Diablo 2 at any point in your life for a considerable amount of time, you will know that your shield is where most of your resistances end up coming from, in the form of a spirit shield, maybe Herald of Zakarum, maybe you're using a rhyme shield for Cannot Be Frozen. There are tons and tons and tons of shields in this game that are so much better than this one. And it tries to augment the fact that it's not particularly a very good shield by coming up with some other things to add in. So for instance, we've got 5% chance to cast level 5 Poison Nova when struck. 5% is so low that it will almost never happen. But let's pretend that it did happen. Let's pretend it was 50% chance to cast level 5 Poison Nova. Level 5 Poison Nova is not high enough to do anything. It lasts for 2 seconds, and it does like about 200 damage, if that. On top of that, the shield also has 80 poison damage over 4 seconds. And the 80 poison damage over 4 seconds will also not stack with Poison Nova, and it will also not stack with Poison Explosion. So if you were to use this specifically for the idea that it involves, the Poison Nova, the Poison Explosion, and the Poison Damage, none of them stack together. So the Poison Explosion is not going to stack with the Nova is not going to stack with the damage isn't going to stack with the explosion, and so forth and so on. And you're literally just left with 3 pitiful poison damage effects that won't even stack together to like combine like a Megazord to at least make something that might be worthwhile. And again, 80 poison damage over 4 seconds, just like the Viper Manfork, is so ridiculously low that it is to be laughable. Especially when you consider the fact that in Nightmare difficulty, all monsters have 50% poison reduction. So you're looking at 80 poison damage over 4 seconds is going to be reduced very quickly to 40 poison damage over 2 seconds. And when you get to Hell difficulty, that ends up being divided into a third. So you end up with 1/3 of the poison damage, which is even worse. And it's just a shield that doesn't quite make a lot of sense. I understand the theme that they were going for. They were trying to make it kind of seem like you're Radamant, right? You're shooting out poison, and you've got poison explosions, and you've got poison novas, and when you bop somebody on the head, you've got poison damage. But the poison explosion is too low to be useful. The poison nova is too low to be useful, and the poison damage is, again, too low to be useful. And when you take away all the poison effects from this shield, what are you left with? You're left with a shield that has somewhat decent defense, a decent amount of blocking and faster blocking rate, but that's nothing that you couldn't get from a Rhyme shield, from a Spirit, from a Herald of Zakarum, from just about any unique shield out there. There's several set shields that are better than that in terms of just simply raw defense and block chance. And on top of that, it has a 110 strength requirement, which is pretty high for most characters. Granted, by the time you hit like level 75 or level 80, you've got enough to use your 156 Monarch shield. But by then, when you compare a Radamant Sphere to something like a Monarch shield, it's complete and utter garbage that you wouldn't even bother to deign. About the only thing that's cool about this shield is how it looks. It does have a very interesting appearance, but let me tell you what, there's 2 other shields in the game that share this appearance: the Ward Gothic shield and the Spirit Ward shield. And both of them have the same appearance, and they both are way better shields than this shield. So if you wanted to specifically get the appearance of this particular shield, there's other options. In fact, I would recommend both the Ward Gothic shield and the other elite version of the shield, the Ward, because they are just so much better. I'm just dropping on the ground at this point because I'm not keeping them. I'm definitely not keeping them. Moving on to the next item on the list. Kinnan Mills All. So this particular sword is one of those really bad swords that doesn't really have a good grasp on like what a paladin is. Kin Mill's All is a two-handed sword, not a one-handed sword, that seemed to be aimed directly at paladins. And the problem with this is that they didn't aim it at paladins like, hey, use this as a charge paladin, because that would have been cool. Or, they didn't aim it specifically at a paladin in a way that made sense. They put a two-handed sword, and they gave it +6 holy fire, extra fire damage, a decent amount of enhanced damage, and then they also gave it plus mana, which I don't even understand why it has plus mana. Let me lay this down for you in a way that you'll understand. Holy Fire is a skill that applies fire damage to your attack, right? So it doesn't matter how fast you swing. If you're swinging really slow, donk, or if you're swinging really fast, ding, 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 it's going to apply that fire damage on every single successful hit that you make. So in general, when you're using something like Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, or Holy Shock, you want to attack faster, not slower. And the reason for this is because you want to apply that fire damage as quickly as possible. And putting the +6 Holy Fire on a two-handed weapon, which is going to be slow, and not giving it any increased attack speed, is a slap in the face to anybody who actually wants to build a Holy Fire Paladin, because at this point you are now wielding a slow, unwieldy weapon on your Paladin. In fact, let's go over to a Paladin real quick. Alright, so here we are over on the Paladin, and I mean, as you can see, it has a very pretty blue graphic with kind of like what seems to be almost like phoenix wings. I mean, as far as the graphic goes on the sword, it certainly is a very pretty one, but it doesn't really fulfill the goal which it needs to fulfill. So we've already gone over the fact that it's a slower weapon with basically no increased attack speed on what is basically a character who is designed around the fastest attacks possible. Any kind of Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, or Holy Shock Paladin wants to attack quickly. They don't want to attack slow. On top of this, it completely forgoes a shield. So one of the Paladin's most endearing and critical enhancements that makes the Paladin so amazing is the fact that he has a holy shield that can dish out the most amazing amount of defense possible. It gives him a huge portion of block chance. It gives him a massive bonus to his defense. It gives him, just amazing effects. And in fact, most of the time when you build a Paladin, it doesn't really matter what shield you're wielding, because quite honestly, most Paladin shields are actually pretty sweet, and they have some very amazing effects on them. And it's not necessarily to pinpoint any specific shield, but just simply to say that a Paladin without a shield is at an extreme disadvantage because the character is balanced that way. They are actually physically balanced around the entire idea of having a shield, and so when you remove one from a Paladin, they become extremely weaker as a result. And Kin Mill's All is a sword that basically tempts a Paladin to be a non-shield wielding Paladin, to be the characters that don't actually use a shield. And the funny thing here is that it doesn't really work out too well. You could try, for instance, to pair this up with maybe Charge ability to get some massive amount of physical damage on a single target. But see, Charge is about a single massive hit, and Holy Fire doesn't gain any damage from this. So when you go with a slower attack, you are hurting your overall DPS with Holy Fire because there's no reason to use Holy Fire with anything that's not a quick ability, which is the reason why almost all of the time when you build a character, build a Paladin, and you use Holy Fire, Holy Shock, or Holy Freeze, you tend to go with the combat skills that will best augment those, like for instance Zeal, because Zeal can apply those hits as quickly as humanly possible. And the downside, of course, of having an ability like this, or a weapon like this, which is two-handed, is you're going to go into combat and you're going to fight monsters, and they are going to absolutely demolish you. Number one, you no longer have the ability to attack quickly. You can try to, of course, but you're not going to dish out damage anywhere near as quickly as if you were using something like a Phase Blade, which would definitely be a hell of a lot faster than the Kin and Mills All. Now, granted, you could augment Kin and Mills All with something like Fanaticism to make your character attack faster. But here's the thing. Holy Fire is one of those abilities that you have to use. It's one of the auras. So as soon as you put Holy Fire on your character, you can no longer use your Fanaticism aura. It is a very poorly thought out weapon, in my opinion, and quite honestly, just one of the worst uniques, I think, in the game. I rarely ever, honestly, see a character actually utilize this as a paladin. In fact, I would imagine that just something as simple as a Saigon's Shield with +1 and something like a Honor War Scepter with maybe +3 Holy Fire on it, which is what, 4, 5? So +5, and you still get to use a shield, would definitely be a better low-level option than Kin and Mills All. Now, granted, if you were a Holy Fire Paladin, and you happen to find this at level 23, and you were beefing up Holy Fire to its utmost, you know, maybe you've got maximum resist fire, and you've got a couple points into the actual skill. So I'm saying at level 23, you've got, what, 23 points, right? So you could have dumped 20 points into resist fire, and you could have put 3 points into Holy Fire. This could be an interesting sword just simply to get the added fire damage. If you take a look at Holy Fire, the radial Holy Fire goes from 65 to 208 to 18 to 82 just by putting the sword on. So you do get a little bit of radial effect by increasing it by 6 levels in this one scenario. But as soon as you're capable of utilizing something better, you're probably going to. And the downside of not having a shield while using this is going to be readily apparent as the monsters literally shred you to pieces because you can no longer block and you don't have any kind of bonuses or resistances from this particular item. If this was a little bit lower level item, I could see using it on Holy Fire Paladins early on where things don't really matter, but it just doesn't quite fit the bill. Let's move on to the next item on the list, which is the Alma Negra. The Alma Negra is an elite sacred Rondash, and it is quite honestly just a really terrible unique for its level. One of the things that I talk about all the time in Diablo 2 is judging a unique item or an item by its level. Okay, so, you know, if you find something that's level 10, you judge it based on the qualifiers of what makes a good level 10 item. If you have an item that's level 77, like the Alma Negra, you have to judge it based on endgame level statistics. So the items that this piece of equipment goes up against are things like Herald of Zakharum, a Spirit Shield for a Paladin in a Paladin base, a Rhyme Shield in a Paladin base, a Splendor in a Paladin base. You could also compare it to the Dragon Scale. You could compare it to a Monarch Shield, the Storm Shield Monarch Shield. You could compare it to quite a large number of shields in this game, including a Moser's Blessed Circle. And the correct answer to the question is if you were to rate all of those shields from number 1 to the bottom of the tier, which shield would be at the bottom? And undoubtedly it is the Alma Negra. Why is the Alma Negra so low on the list, especially when you compare it to other such shields like the Herald of Zakharum or even something like the Dragon Scale Shield? The reason is because it has nothing special. It's a +2 shield with faster blocking and increased chance of blocking. This is probably its really only redeeming characteristic, and any other good shield out there has similar effects. The Herald of Zakharum shield, for instance, has +4 to a specific branch of the Paladin's trees and +2 to all. And then it also has faster blocking rate, increased chance of blocking, enhanced defense, and all of that. So what is the only special effect that Alma Negra has, which is the reason why it doesn't stack up? And that is the bonus damage and the bonus attack rating. Alma Negra is an offensive shield. And the real issue with the Alma Negra is that it does not have enough bonus to make it worthwhile. Let me give you the clearest example of why Alma Negra is a very poor option for a lot of characters. If you were going to use a damage shield, an offensive shield, one of the easiest things for you to do would be to use a Phoenix. The Phoenix shield in a 45 all-res base would by far outstretch the 75% enhanced damage on the Alma Negra. Even if you were to put something in here like a 50% enhanced damage or a 40% enhanced damage jewel with 15% IAS, it's not going to eclipse the 400% that Phoenix offers. And on top of that, this shield has no all resistances, and the Phoenix would have 45 all res if made in the proper base. In fact, you could theoretically make a large number of shields that would still have better resistances, more defense, and more plus the skills than something like this, all together in a nice package. Take, for instance, a Spirit Shield. A Spirit Shield has all resistances, right? So you don't necessarily have to use an all resistance base. You could find a Paladin Shield that has enhanced damage on it if you wanted specifically to have the enhanced damage. And that means that the Alma Negra can't even compete with something like a Spirit Shield, because the Spirit Shield could literally be made in an enhanced damage base, still get the all resistances, still get the +2 to skills, and still get the defensive characteristics, all while making the Alma Negra look like an absolute piece of garbage. My biggest issue with the Alma Negra is that it doesn't really achieve the goal that it set out to achieve. They need to increase the enhanced damage on the Alma Negra probably by a large margin. I'm thinking like 300 to 400% enhanced damage for it to become something that a Paladin would actually want to put on. On top of that, the 75% bonus to attack rating would also need to be increased a massive margin. I'm thinking at least 200%, if not higher bonus to attack rating to actually make it worth putting on in those regards. And honestly, it needs something else. Like, it needs another characteristic to be added on top. +2 Paladin with decent blocking is not enough, because everything that you can put on just about in place of this has +2 Paladin with good block chance. You don't need that particular characteristic to make this shield good. This shield is trying to do something else. It's trying to be an offensive shield. You could add on Deadly Strike. You could add on Open Wounds. You could add on Crushing Blow. You could add on a myriad of characteristics which could make this interesting as an offensive shield and still not add any resistances, and it would be an interesting option in place of something like a Herald of Zakarum. But it just doesn't have any of that. And because it doesn't have any of that, it ends up being a mediocre at best shield, and quite honestly, one of the worst unique shields, I think, in the entire game. I think Radamant's Sphere is probably the only one that I would rate lower than this particular shield, and it's specifically because there's just so many better options. I mean, if you put me in front of a table, like, full of shields, just going all the way down like it was a yard sale or something, and you said, pick the shield you want, it's yours for free, the Alma Negra would definitely not be the shield that I chose. Would I use it? Yes. If I didn't have anything better, if I didn't have the runes for a spirit, if I didn't have the base for a spirit, if I was a brand new ladder character and the Alma Negra dropped right into my lap and I didn't have anything else on, yes, I would use it. But as soon as I found anything better, it would get replaced. And there's a very good chance that an Ancient's Pledge in a 3-socket Paladin base would win out over this, because at level 77, I need resistances, especially if I'm a low-level ladder character, which means that there is a very good chance I'm not going to utilize this shield just simply because I need resists and I'm dying, and this shield does not offer those. Moving on to the next item on the list, Templar's Might. So Templar's Might is another one of those unique items that just has to be judged based on high-level characteristics. If it was a low-level item, it might actually be useful. But because it is a high-level item, it is not. Even in its ethereal form, it is really still quite bad, and the only characteristic that it has, honestly, is the enhanced defense. It is a very high defense piece of equipment, but as many people will tell you, defense is not the most important statistic in the game. Granted, having defense is important. In fact, I usually recommend that people have at least about 5,000 defense when they get to hell difficulty, because if you don't have about 5,000 defense, you tend to get hit by everything, unless you're like an Amazon who dodges everything, and in that case, you're dodging everything. Why is this such a pitiful piece of equipment? Let me lay it out for you. Offensive auras is not really a good plus to skills. In most situations, when you're a paladin, what you're really looking for is combat skills. Offensive auras is like not really preferred, but it's something that if you were, had no other choice, you would certainly take it. But it's not something that you're going to go out of your way to build unless you happen to be like a Holy Shock or a Holy Freeze Paladin or something like that. And even then, you would still prefer +2 all, not +2 offensive. So in any situation that matters, you're going to try and get +2 all, and there are plenty of +2 all armors. Right off the top of my head, we've got Arcane's Valor, we've got Enigma, there's the Paladin Elite Rune Word, which is Principle, which has +2, and honestly, I would take a Principle over this armor any day of the week. It doesn't really have anything else to offer either. There's no Cannot Be Frozen, there's no Prevent Monster Heal, there's no Open Wounds, there's no Crushing Blow, there's no special effects on this armor whatsoever. It literally only has +2 offensive auras, some faster hit recovery, which isn't really a lot, enhanced defense and defense versus missile, and then it has strength, which is almost a slap in the face because of the 232 strength requirement on this thing, which is prohibitive in the nth degree. You might think to yourself, well, hey, I could throw this on a mercenary. But most mercenaries don't even have the strength requirement to put this armor on. Even in its ethereal form, 222 is too high for most of the mercenaries. So you couldn't even effectively use it as a merc item unless you gave the mercenary some plus strength equipment. And then Vitality also doesn't help mercenaries. So the only effect that it has that isn't specifically for a mercenary is the Vitality, really. And even at that point, I just don't understand. And then on top of all that, like a slap in the face, a really high strength requirement, really ridiculously bad stats, and then on top of that, they throw max stamina. They're like, hey, this armor's not bad enough. Let's put some maximum stamina on there. That'll really clinch it. And, why? If I found an Ethereal Templar's Might, I would probably keep it. And the reason why I probably keep it is just simply because it's a rare item, and it's not easy to come by an Ethereal Templar's Might. As far as the defense goes, if I had a choice to choose this item over quite a few other choices, I wouldn't choose it. There are some much better choices for high defense armors. One in particular that I would recommend over this any day of the week, and it's actually much easier to come by, is the Runeword Stone. The Runeword Stone is a massive defense piece of equipment with extremely high faster hit recovery, and it also has a Clay Golem charge, which you can use, and then you get even more defensive capability out of it because your Clay Golem's around murdering everything. Stone is by far a better choice than Templar's Might in just about every scenario, and there are even better options in the unique variety for a high defense. In fact, if you wanted something specifically for high defense, I would recommend the Steel Carapace as a better choice over the Templar's Might. Moving on to the next item on the list is a very strange mace called Moonfall. Moonfall is a jagged star, and it can be upgraded, but unfortunately it's one of those items which is just really bad. Let's go over it together and let's talk about why it's bad and why I rate it as one of the worst uniques in the game. At level 42, 60 to 92 damage is not a lot. There are quite a few items that actually surpass 60 to 92 damage relatively easily. It is a one-handed weapon, of course, and it doesn't have any increased attack speed on it whatsoever. Most one-handed weapons, or rather melee weapons you're looking for, you usually want something on the faster side than the slower side, especially when you're dealing with a one-handed weapon. And it is just really slow. At level 42, 55 to 115 fire damage is extraordinarily low for a character who is literally entering into Nightmare difficulty and is going to be coming up against quite a large number of monsters. In fact, by the time you end up using this, you're getting close to Act 4 Nightmare, and Act 4 Nightmare is completely filled with fire immunes. So the only advantage that this weapon has is completely trumped by all the fire immunes that start to appear in Nightmare difficulty. On top of that, they give you charges for Meteor, level 11 Meteor, and then it also casts level 6 Meteor, both of which are not really high enough damage to actually do any good for you. Maybe at level 42 exactly, when you first put this item on, you could potentially kill some monsters with it, but if for the most part, the level 11 unsynergized Meteor isn't really going to kill a whole lot of anything in Nightmare difficulty. In fact, just for fairness, let's go to Nightmare difficulty and let's walk out of the Bloodmoor and let's try and use Meteor on some monsters and see how well it kills them, shall we? And then, of course, the other downside here is that you've got to repair the item. It's not an O skill. It's just, hey, here's 60 Meteor charges. Use them to your heart's content. So let's see how Meteor does versus some monsters in Nightmare difficulty. Come on, and as you can see here, like I said, on level at the exact level that you put this item on, it is decent, because you can actually kill some monsters with the meteors. But as you level up, very quickly, the meteors become so bad and so worthless as far as damage is concerned that you wouldn't even think to use them. And the level 6 meteor that actually comes from the item is even worse. And then, as if a bigger slap in the face, it's a pretty huge cost to repair each one of the charges to actually keep up with this. And at level 42, your gold reserves are not going to last out forever spamming meteors. And to top it off, there are just so many better choices at this level. There's so many better choices. You could be using the Butcher's Pupil. You could be using Baronair's Star shortly later. You could be using quite a large number of daggers, axes. I mean, just even something like an upgraded... I think right off the top of my head, one of the lower level uniques that could even be better than this. It's the Bloodrise Morningstar. The Bloodrise Morningstar is a normal level unique, and it has 120% enhanced damage, so it's only 30% shy of the Moonfall Jagged Star, but it also has increased attack speed, lifesteal, it has open wounds, it has bonus to attack rating. In general, this item is so poor by comparison to something like an upgraded Bloodrise Morningstar that I wouldn't even think to use this over that. I would rather have the upgraded Bloodrise Morningstar. And many of the Nightmare level uniques are better than this item by far. I mean, you can take one look at the Nightmare level uniques, and each one of them has an effect which is better than this weapon. The Sure Shrill Frost Flanged Mace is definitely better than the Moonfall Jagged Star. Bazile's Vortex, I would even say, is better than the Moonfall Jagged Star. And as you look at your other options, you go, okay, well, I could be using, Ginther's Rift, or I could be using, a Crush Flange for extra crushing blow, or I could be using a freaking Razor Tine, like Trident, or there's tons of different items in the game that can offer special effects like Crushing Blow, Open Wound, slows target by, Deadly Strike, also Lifesteal, which this is completely missing. Also, any kind of like increased speed, like speed over damage. There are a lot of items like this, like even Diggler's Dirk. I would still rate as higher than this item because Diggler's Dirk has ignores target's defense and it is extremely fast. This item has no ignores target's defense and it's not fast. And in general, I just think that Moonfall Jagged Star really missed the mark on what it was trying to achieve. If they had increased the percent chance of the meteors, maybe a little bit higher, if they had made the meteor on striking, maybe a little bit higher, or perhaps made the level 11 meteor an O skill, that could be an interesting way to do things. But as it is, the Moonfall Jagged Star, I believe, is one of the worst uniques in the game. Moving on to the next unique item on the list, Storm Spire. That's right, another elite item. This is an elite item that really missed the mark, in my opinion, and quite honestly just didn't really make for a good item, let alone a good elite item, and it does have to be judged again based upon those high-level standards. Maybe as a lower-level item, this item could have potentially had some use, but as a level 70 endgame piece of equipment, it just doesn't really fit the bill. It's a Giant Thresher. And the Giant Threshers are amazing items. In fact, a lot of people search for ethereal or non-ethereal Giant Threshers to make rune words in. But this one just really misses the mark. With extremely high strength and dex requirements and an extremely high level of level 70, it has some of the most mediocre effects on it. It's fast. It has 30% enhanced increased speed, which is okay, I guess. And it also has 250% enhanced damage, which does give it a pretty decent damage for a non-ethereal item. However, it also has the indestructible mechanic, which means that it cannot spawn ethereal at all. So you cannot find an ethereal version of this. You cannot Zod it. You can't put an ethereal version on your Merc, for instance, for the extra damage, which puts it below just about every other unique, which could potentially roll ethereal. Like, for instance, a Tomb Reaver can roll ethereal, and it is way better than this item. A Ariox Needle can roll ethereal, and it is way better than this item. And quite honestly, you will find that there are very few items that are worse than a Storm Spire Giant Thresher, even considering Nightmare level uniques. Like, for instance, you can upgrade an Ethereal Honsudan Yari to a Ghost Spear, and it will outperform this weapon considerably. On top of that, it also has some very mediocre effects. 2% chance to cast level 20 unsynergized Charged Bolt is awful. Level 20 Charged Bolt is going to do all of, like, 50 damage. Level 20 Charge Bolt is not a lot of damage. Each bolt is going to do a certain amount of damage, and being able to, completely unpredictable in when it casts, you can't even focus it on a target, really. So it's just going to do whatever it wants to do, and, if you're getting hit by ranged attacks, if you're getting hit by spells, the only time it might actually do a little bit of damage is when you're in melee range of a monster and that melee monster triggers the ability, because it will hit all of the bolts will hit him. But even then, even under those situations, it's still very lackluster. Maybe if it was being used by a sorceress who was, fully synergized in charged bolts, like a bear sorceress or something, right? But here's the thing, it's only a 2% chance, which means it very rarely, if ever, procs. Then on top of that, we have another 5% chance to cast level 5 Chain Lightning, which again is so low level at level 70 that it does basically nothing. And then to top it all off, they give us a really mediocre amount of lightning damage. Take, for instance, Azure Wrath, which has 500 cold damage on it. It's a one-handed weapon and it swings really fast, okay? And now we have a Giant Thresher, which is nowhere near as fast as an Azure Wrath, and it deals 237 lightning damage, which is less than half of the amount of cold damage that Azure Wrath does, at basically the same level. 237 lightning damage is so pathetic that it basically does nothing. The only character that could even get any use out of this, in my opinion, would be a lightning mastery sorceress that could enhance the lightning damage on the weapon even further. But honestly, in any scenario that I can think of in my mind, I would not want to use this on a melee sorceress. I would probably rather go with another weapon. Most notably, something like an Infinity, maybe a Hone Sudan Yari for crushing blow and extra speed, or perhaps even an Obedience for extra faster hit recovery. There are a lot of different options that I might go with a two-handed weapon on a sorceress, but honestly, if I was going to go melee sorceress, I would probably go one-handed and shield, because it's faster, it's more survivable, and I'm a sorceress. I'm going to be in there beating things. Why would I want to put myself in a situation where I'm going to be even more vulnerable, wielding a weapon that basically does nothing for me? And then on top of that, they give it 50% lightning resistance, which of course is supposed to go along with the entire theme of the item, the theme being lightning damage. But the problem is that it really missed its mark. The chain lightning is too low to be useful. The charged bolt isn't really useful because it has an extremely low proc chance of only 2%, which means it's very rarely, if ever, going to go off. And the lightning damage that they added is so low that it is to be laughable. And the resistances, the 50% lightning resistance, while it's nice to have 50% lightning resistance, I've often noted that any other option that you could put in this place would probably have better resistances. You would probably, on a melee sorceress, be better off with a wizard spike than something like this. Which leads us to our next option, our next horrible unique, which is the Storm Spike. You're noticing a theme here. A lot of storm-based items, and they all seem to be terrible. I don't know why they had trouble balancing these particular items. The Storm Spike is a stiletto, and it is an item that also, in the same vein as the Storm Spire, misses the mark completely. 25% chance to cast level 3 Charge Bolt, so kind of the same thing going on here that was with the Storm Spire. The Storm Spire had this really high level of Charged Bolt, but at a really low percentage to cast it, and this one has a really low level of Charge Bolt with a really high percentage to cast it, so you're going to get really crappy Charge Bolts going off all the time. Because it's a stiletto, it is a range 1 weapon, which really sucks. It doesn't really have amazing damage for its level. It has no increased attack speed. It has no really amazing effect. In fact, the 90% lightning resistance, which by the way is based off of character level, doesn't even really compare to something like a wizard spike. If I was going to put on this item, I would stop myself, slap my hand, and then immediately go, just put on a wizard spike instead. It's 75 all-res, and you can socket it, and you can put in like a 15 all-res jewel, and now you have literally, 75, 85, 90 all-res on a single item. Why would I trade 90 all resistances for 90 to a single resistance? It's a absolutely terrible, terrible way to go. On top of that, it also, similarly to the Storm Spike, the Storm Spire has a lightning damage which is really low. Now at level 41, 120 is a lot better than the 266 on the Storm Spire that was at level like 70 something as an endgame item. Even then, though, unfortunately, the Storm Spike Stiletto just really falls short of any kind of interesting mechanic. If they changed the 25% chance to cast level 3 Charged Bolt to something like Static Field, or maybe Lightning, or anything that could actually be useful on the character as you're playing, I could imagine that it could be an interesting choice, but it's not. Honestly, I probably wouldn't even use this to make an Iron Golem. Moving on to our next item, and that is Atma's Whale. So Atma's Whale is an embossed plate that you can find, and it drops fairly often. But the main issue with Atma's Whale is it just doesn't really offer a whole lot of anything specific at a time when you really need some specific things. Around level 51, when you put this on, you are making your way through Nightmare difficulty. And Nightmare difficulty is a place that is pretty rough on a lot of characters, especially since you don't really need very many resistances to beat normal, and by the time you get to Nightmare, you kind of haven't really worked out your resists properly. And so going into Nightmare difficulty with an armor like this that offers no resistances whatsoever can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. It has decent defense, and that's pretty much the only thing that I can say about this plate in, a positive light, is that the Atma's Whale Embossed Plate and the Atma's Whale Embossed Plate Ethereal version have some pretty decent defense for their level. And the faster hit recovery can come in handy, but there are certainly better items that you could put on a mercenary to make them have good defense and faster hit recovery. I feel like there's probably 100 better choices out there than Atma's Whale. Now, granted, if you don't have anything else, and I'm going to say this over and over again, if you don't have anything else, a lot of these uniques can be useful under specific circumstances. Like, say you're a solo self-found character and Atma's Whale was just the only plate of armor that you happen to find, then by all means, put it on. Don't just drop it on the ground because I'm telling you it's one of the worst unique items in the game, but keep in mind that it's just not a good item. It has a relatively high strength requirement for an item of 125 at level 51. It offers statistics which almost make me think that it was designed for a sorceress, with things like increased maximum mana, replenish life, magic find, but the magic find on it is only 20%. Most characters around level 51 have already kind of gotten their magic find sorted. They're working on things like a 3 topaz armor or a 4 topaz armor, or maybe they have made themselves a wealth for magic find, or maybe they've gotten lucky enough to find something like Skulder's Ire, or maybe even some of the other magic find plates in the game, like for instance maybe a gold skin. There's a lot of different items in the game which can be utilized specifically for magic finding. Even items that come with multiple sockets, like something like a Spirit Forged Link Mail with 2 topazes in it, or a Griswold's Heart, which is 3 sockets with 3 topazes in it. And there's just so many better options than Atma's Whale as far as like actually utilizing the best effects for your character. I don't necessarily think that this is unusable, but in comparison to just about every other item out there, if you had the choice between, like I've said before, if you literally had the choice between a whole bunch of different armors sitting on the table, this is probably, again, not the one that you would choose. Moving on, which I think is the last item, I'll need to double check, but I'm pretty sure this is the last item, is the Skull Splitter Military Pick. The Skull Splitter Military Pick is one of the worst items, I think, in the game. And the reason is because, number one, it's a military pick. It doesn't have anything to do with the unique effects, which is kind of sad. Because, it's not necessarily a good base. Military picks, Crowbills, and I can't remember the elite one right off the top of my head, are just bad axe bases in general. They're not, in my opinion, one of the ones that anyone really looks for. Nobody I've ever heard of comes to me and goes, "Hey, have you found an ethereal, 4-socket skull splitter? I want to make a beast in it," or something like that. Or, "Hey, have you found a 5-socket ethereal skull splitter? I want to make a death in it." No, they look for Etten axes, they look for berserker's axes, they look for phase blades, they look for conquest swords, they look for all sorts of different weapons, but nobody looks for this base. And then to make matters worse, it doesn't really have good statistics. It has a halfway decent amount of enhanced damage, but at 14 to 22, it's actually pretty terrible for level 21. There's so many better weapons that you could be wielding at this level. It has a decent amount of attack rating, which I'm not going to talk bad about. And then the lightning damage on it is 1 to 12, which is absolutely god-awful for level 21. Maybe at level 5, 1 to 12 lightning damage would have been great, but at level 21, that's basically going to do nothing. And then 15% chance of open wounds, which is always nice to have on an item. But why 15%? Why is it so low? And then hits blind target +2, which is halfway decent in normal difficulty, becomes completely useless in nightmare difficulty, and I don't even want to talk about how useless +2 blinds target is in hell difficulty, because the duration is decreased massively, so you need more hits blinds target to actually make it useful, and I probably would never use a skull splitter military pick in hell difficulty anyway. And then the only other effect that it has, which is anywhere near decent, is the regenerate mana 20%. Now, the main problem with the regenerate mana 20% is that, number one, most characters and most players have a really small mana pool around this level. And regenerate mana does not work very well unless you have a large mana pool. The larger your mana pool, the better regenerate mana works. So having regeneration of mana at a low level does relatively nothing. You could put this on a sorceress with like 100 mana and it would have like almost no effect on her regeneration whatsoever. The same thing for a necromancer, a paladin, a barbarian. All of those characters around level 21 have horrible mana pools, and the regeneration is basically doing nothing at that point unless you've decided to stack energy. And what is the number one thing that every YouTuber tells you? Don't put any points into energy, right? So when you're using this particular item, the regeneration of mana is a moot point and does practically nothing. The only two effects on this item, the chance to open wounds and the hits blinds target, would relegate it to something like an offhand item. And the only use that I can really think of it for in a melee standpoint is to like put it in the offhand of like a barbarian who has a much better main hand weapon, just simply to get the blinds target and the chance of open wounds. But even then, I feel like there's probably better choices. In fact, I would probably rather use something like a Death Spade axe upgraded once, which also has hits blind target, by the way. Oh man, I've been going on for 52 minutes on the worst unique items in the game, and I hope you enjoyed this little rant on all of the unique items which I consider bad. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and don't hate me for calling these items terrible, because, well, they are. And as always, keep watching.
Greetings.
To be in a top spot because they're very specific to very specific builds. All right. The first one on that list, I'm going to go over them really quickly, is the Death's Web Wand. Although the Death's Web Wand is an amazing wand for necromancers and can be used by a rabies druid, maybe you thwack somebody with a wand on your rabies druid, and there are some limited uses on a poison javelin Amazon if you want to like cast swap. For the most part, it is a rather very good item, but it is limited to a very specific class and a very specific build. Also, Griffin's Eye Diadem, very similarly, is also very limited to a very specific build. It is mainly used by lightning sorceresses and also can be used by lightning javazons, but for the most part has no real use among most other classes in the game because it's very specifically pointed at a lightning skill damage character, and there are very few other lightning skill damage characters that can utilize this helmet, including the Dream Paladin, who wears the Dream Helmet, which takes the place of the helmet slot that you could potentially put Griffin's Eye in. Another item that is very similar to this is the Titan's Revenge. Titan's Revenge is a very amazing javelin, so don't be too sad that it didn't make the top of this list. But it is a very good unique nonetheless. It is just extremely limited in its usefulness, specifically to Amazons and specifically to Spear and Javelin Amazons, and it has no other purpose other than Spear and Javelin Amazons. Similarly, the Herald of Zakarum shield is an amazing paladin shield, but again, it is strictly limited to paladins, and many people would argue that although Herald of Zakarum is an amazing shield, a lot of the times it ends up getting replaced by things like Exile, Phoenix, Spirit, and so forth and so on, specifically for other builds, and that Herald of Zakarum is definitely an amazing shield, and anytime you see one drop, you should totally pick it up. You should totally put it in your stash. But, you know, it's not a all-around item that deserves to be on the top list. Another such item is the Death's Fathom Dimensional Shard. Again, another item that is absolutely amazing, but really doesn't deserve to be on the top list, specifically because it is pretty much only used for one build. For the most part, and although it is amazing, it's only sorceress, and it's really only specific sorceresses and specific builds of sorceresses. And last on my list of kind of honorable mentions is the Tomb Reaver Cryptic Axe, which I do feel is an amazing item. However, it also lacks usability across the board. It's mainly used for things like a druid, shapeshifter druid, and I don't really see a lot of other people use this other than shapeshifter druid, although it does come in handy on some mercenaries if you'd like to use it on them, but there are definitely some better options for mercs. The only real reason to use the Tomb Reaver, honestly, on a mercenary over other choices is Magic Find, because it does have some pretty good Magic Find on it, and you can tie it together with some other Magic Find items for some pretty good bonuses. Now, without further ado, let's get into the top 16 uniques. And as you can already clearly see in my inventory, I have a large number of unique items, and we are going to go over them from the end of the ranking to the top. So starting with number 16 on the list is the Razor Tail Belt. The Razor Tail Belt made it to number 16 on the list because of its versatility. The main reason why the Razor Tail is so versatile is because it has the piercing attack effect. It also has a very nice plus 10 maximum damage, very nice amount of dexterity, and quite honestly, it's just a really nice belt all around for a lot of builds. Whether you are a throwing barbarian who is trying to get extra piercing for his throwing attacks, whether you are an Amazon who is using a bow who needs extra piercing for her attacks, or you're a Javazon who needs extra piercing for her attacks, or maybe you're an Enchantress who is trying to utilize something like a Demon Machine crossbow and you'd like extra piercing, again, for your attacks, or maybe you're a Holy Shock, Holy Freeze, Holy Fire Paladin who's trying to have fun with a bow and you want to utilize your elemental damage in a way that you might not otherwise be able to. Having the ability to add a 33% piercing to your character, no matter what character that is absolutely amazing and very, very versatile. And that's the reason why it made it to number 16 on the list, just due to its extreme versatility in allowing any character in the game to have the amazing ability to pierce targets. And of course, recently we had an additional item added to this list, which is the Wisdom Rune Word, which has an additional 33% pierce on it. So now any character in the game can have 66% pierce if you tag Razor Tail along with the Wisdom Helmet, which is actually exceedingly amazing. Because if you are a character who is trying to use a bow that is not an Amazon, Pierce is definitely something that you want to add onto those characters. Moving on to number 15 on the list is the War Traveler Boots. So the War Traveler Boots are an amazing pair of boots that a lot of people actually underestimate for a couple reasons. Number one, the biggest and most amazing draw of War Travelers definitely is the 50% better chance of magic items, right? Everybody looks at the 50% better chance of magic items, but the effect that a lot of people don't see and don't understand is the 15 to 25 damage that's written on the War Traveler's boots. This 15 to 25 damage is actually min and max damage, and it actually provides a massive bump in physical damage to a large number of characters. These boots can actually provide anywhere up to like 500 to 600 extra damage on something like Vengeance. They work very good on bow Amazons and characters who have really high physical damage numbers, because the 15 to 25 extra damage is essentially being added to the base of the weapon, and it's multiplying out across all of your skills, which makes War Travelers a very interesting pair of boots, not only as magic-fied, but also as the ability to increase the damage of your character, especially on certain builds where increasing the damage of your character is extremely difficult. For instance, a Vengeance Paladin gets very little bonuses that will affect their damage, and one of the very few bonuses that affects the Vengeance Paladin is min and max damage. So War Travelers are one of the best pairs of boots that you can put on a Vengeance Paladin because of the massive bump in damage that you get from them. Moving on to number 14 on the list is a weapon that actually made it onto the list, and that is Reaper's Toll. So Reaper's Toll made it onto the list at position number 14 because of its extreme versatility in both mercenaries and players, and quite honestly, it's just an amazing item all around. Reaper's Toll, especially in its ethereal version, has some amazing effects on it. Whether it's the 33% chance to cast level 1 Decrepify, which will break physical immunity, will cause monsters to be much slower and easier to kill in general. The ignores target's defense, which makes it so that you don't miss any monsters that you're attacking as long as they're not bosses. And the 15% lifesteal, which is absolutely amazing to help keep your mercenary alive, combined with the 33% deadly strike, which allows your mercenary to hit for double damage. And then on top of that, it has negative requirements, which makes it even more powerful. And recently, since the Druid, the Shapeshifter Druid, and werewolf and bear forms have both been changed so that you can utilize weapons that don't have increased attack speed on them, the Reaper's Toll has actually become one of the best in slot items for Shapeshifter Druids now. So not only is it exceedingly useful on mercenaries, very good on a barbarian, a whirlwind barbarian, also extremely good on Shapeshifter Druids now, including bear and the other. It can actually be utilized by a large variety of characters, just simply to add the Decrepify into their attack. Now, because it is a two-handed weapon, it is a little bit limited in its usefulness, and it is a polearm, so unfortunately it can't be utilized by the Amazon. But you will see Reaper's Tolls put on mercenaries, on Paladin mercenaries, on Amazon mercenaries, on Shapeshifter Druid mercenaries, on all sorts of mercenaries across the board. In fact, even if you don't necessarily need the Decrepify, even if you're on a character who doesn't necessarily need a Reaper's Toll is still an excellent item to put on your mercenary, especially if you find an ethereal version. Moving on to number 13 on the list is an item that has probably one of the most versatile usefulnesses in the game. Yes, that's right, Ravenfrost. So the Ravenfrost is a ring, and a lot of amulets and rings made it onto this list, and the reason why they did, honestly, is because they're just very good items in general. You will often find that unique rings and unique amulets can be among the best items in the game, and since there are no, obviously, rune word rings and rune word amulets, there never has been anything to replace the best of the best amulets and rings. And Ravenfrost is definitely one of the best rings that you can put on. It does not have lifesteal, it does not have mana steal, but what it does have, it is very good. It has Cannot Be Frozen, which is something that a lot of people will use Ravenfrost for, but even without the Cannot Be Frozen, Ravenfrost boasts an amazing amount of attack rating, 250 attack rating, 20 dexterity, which is even more attack rating, and more block chance on your shield, with a decent amount of mana, 40 mana, and cold absorption, all of which make for a ring that can be useful on a large variety of characters. Even if you are a sorceress or a necromancer or any other character who doesn't even necessarily need the attack rating, the mana, the cold absorption that cannot be frozen, and even the dexterity can come in handy on characters that don't necessarily attack anything with a melee or ranged weapon, which is why Ravenfrost made it up to number 13 on the list. Next on our list is an amulet that I think a lot of you will agree deserves a spot on the top unique item list, and that is High Lord's Wrath. So High Lord's Wrath made it up to number 12 on the list, and the reason why it made it up to number 12 on the list is because it does have an amazing versatility. Whether you are a paladin, a barbarian, a druid, an Amazon, even a necromancer, sorceress, or assassin, everybody has some kind of build which can utilize this to make it interesting. I made a Bowenmancer one day, which was all about attack speed and proccing bone spears, and I definitely did need attack speed and plus the skills, so High Lord's Wrath was a good choice. Paladins, druids, they do not have any kind of critical strike effect to double their damage, and High Lord's Wrath has a deadly strike modifier on it, which allows players to double their damage. It also includes +1 to skills and increased attack speed, and all of which combine together to make this a best-in-slot piece of equipment for a lot of characters. Whether you are a paladin, a barbarian, a Amazon, an assassin, a necromancer, a sorceress, it really doesn't matter, because if this is the amulet that you need to put on for your build, guess what? You're going to put it on. Now, I will admit that necromancers, sorceresses are less likely to put this on than other classes. However, you will also find builds that even incorporate High Lord's Wrath in them on those characters. That is why High Lord's Wrath made it up to number 12 on the list, and it is definitely an amazing amulet. Next on the list is number 11. And that is Arcane's Valor. So Arcane's Valor is an odd piece of equipment that a lot of people don't consider because they don't really think about non-rune word armors. When you think about a armor for your character, a lot of the times you consider Chains of Honor, you consider Enigma, you consider Skin of the Viper Magi, or so forth and so on. But one of the things that a lot of people miss out on is that the Arcane's Valor armor is actually pretty much the only +2 skill armor in the game that allows you to have a socket. Skin of the Viper Magi is only +1. Kay Hagen's is only +1. Spirit Shroud is only +1. There are basically no +2 skill pieces of armor specifically like this that allow you to utilize a socket. This means that you can put things like a fire facet, lightning facet, ice facet, cold facet, I said ice cold, poison facet, and if you're trying to build something specifically that requires as many +2 skills as you can get with the addition of a facet, Arcane's Valor comes into play. For classes like a Poison Javelin Amazon is a very good budget piece. You socket it, put 1 poison facet in there, you've got +2 to skills with 5% poison skill damage and -5% enemy poison. For like some niche build, like a paladin that's using a dragon shield that has hydras, the reason why +2 all skills is superior to +2 to a specific character is because +2 all skills will affect things like O skills. So for instance, something like CTA, the O skill Hydras, You can look at a bunch of different things in the game that have O skills on them. I actually just recently did a video on O skills, and the +2 all skills will definitely affect it. We also have vitality based on character level, and we have 30% faster hit recovery on this, which does make it a very excellent piece of equipment. Damage reduced by 15 on here also makes this a very good piece of equipment for the Immortal Sorceress, because it has +2 to all skills with 30% faster hit recovery and a pretty decent amount of life, combined with the damage reduced by 15. This actually makes a very good choice for the Immortal Sorceress item. A lot of people look down on the Arcane's Valor Balrog scan, but it is definitely a very beautiful piece, both in its statistics and also when you wear it on your character, because it makes your character look really sexy. Moving on to number 10 on the list, we have the wonderful, beautiful Arachnid's Mesh. Arachnid's Mesh is a rather rare belt, but it is also a belt which comes in really handy on a large number of characters. Why does it come in handy on a large number of characters? Well, it's the +1 to skills. There are no other +1 to skill belts. Unlike rings, where you have, like 2 options, or armors, where you have a plethora of options, the Arachnid's Mesh belt is definitely one of those items that can be useful on just about any character in the game that needs + to skills. But then, they didn't stop there. They also gave it 20% faster cast rate, which means it is extremely good for caster-type characters. They also gave it slows target by 10%, which is something that is extremely good for a melee or ranged character, which makes this kind of good for either one. And then they also gave it a very decent little increased maximum mana by 5%, which can be helpful on just about any character that wears it. It is lacking some of the more amazing effects, like, for instance, damage reduced by on Verdungos and String of Ears, or things like piercing target on Razortail. But all in all, the Arachnid's Mesh definitely deserves the number 10 spot because it is a item that is useful to a large number of characters. Is it useful to everyone? No. But it is useful to a large, wide variety of builds in Diablo 2, and if you found one, you would certainly want to hang on to it. Moving on to number 9 on the list is a very sexy pair of gloves known as Dracul's Grasp. Dracul's Grasp makes it onto the list for 2 reasons, and they have to do with life steal and life draining away. Dracul's Grasp have the ability to, number 1, spawn level 10 life tap on striking, which make these very, very good gloves for a large variety of characters. And they also bypass the restrictions on lifesteal. So if you guys are unaware of this, and I feel like I need to say this when I'm talking about Dracul's Grasp, Dracul's Grasp is a pair of gloves that has a large amount of lifesteal on it. As you can see, 10% lifesteal. But that is not the magic. The magic is the life tap, which provides a restoration of life for any physical damage that you dish out from a melee or ranged attack. Spells do not count. What this means is that if you are attacking a monster who has a drain effectiveness of 0, the monster will still give you life because life tap makes it so. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, what monsters have a drain effectiveness of 0? Well, the answer to that question is monsters like Uber Mephisto, skeletons. There are also a large variety of monsters that have relatively low drain effectiveness, not 0, but very low. And then on top of that, we also have skills that do not lifesteal. So Smite, for instance, is a skill that does not steal life. However, it will steal life when you are using life tap, which means that Dracul's Grasp comes in handy on a large variety of melee and ranged characters, whether you are a barbarian, Amazon, paladin, or even if you are something like a melee necromancer or something, I don't know. There's a ton of different options for you with these gloves. Now, they are not necessarily the best in slot gloves because they can be replaced by other items such as Exile, or if you're an insanely rich person, Last Wish, and you don't necessarily always need this particular item to cast Life Tap for you, but they are certainly nice to have, and they do make things a lot easier. And you will definitely find that they are worth holding on to, especially for trade value, if you, even if you don't necessarily need them. Moving on to number 8 on the list is a pretty sexy suit of armor. That's right, you may have guessed it because it's obviously on my character, the Skin of the Viper Magi. The Skin of the Viper Magi is a pretty darn sexy armor set. I'm sure it has more than just a body piece. It's probably got little pauldrons and jank and got some little elbow pads and stuff. I'm sure there's more to them than just the graphic. But the Skin of the Viper Magi has +1 to skills, not +2, but +1, which is pretty decent. Although it does have a pretty massive 30% faster cast rate, along with a very nice all resistances 35 and a magic damage reduced by 13. The Skin of the Viper Magi makes it up to number 8 on the list, just simply because of its massive appeal to just about any character in the game. Granted, the 30% faster cast is more specifically pointed at characters that are going to be casting spells, but +1 skills and 35 all res with magic damage reduced by 13 is hardly something that a lot of characters will say, oh no, surely I would hate that. No. That armor is far too blue for me. I need something a little bit more green or red. So the Skin of the Viper Magi makes it into the number 8 spot because of its extreme versatility among all classes. If you find the Skin of the Viper Magi as you're leveling up, you will certainly not turn it down. If somebody hands you one and you don't have anything better on, you're going to equip it. It is extremely handy as you are going into Nightmare difficulty, where resistances are definitely something you're worried about. And as you get into Hell, those 35 all resistances become even more useful. You can, of course, socket it. You can upgrade it. You can put an rune in it. There are tons of things you can do with it. And the ethereal version actually works pretty nicely on the Act 3 Mercenary that has definitely seen a lot more use since patch 2.4. Moving on to number 7 on the list is a very interesting helmet. Andariel's Visage. So Andariel's Visage makes it up to number 7 on the list because of its extreme versatility among players and mercenaries of all classes and types. Invariably, when I am building a character, say in a hero editor or anything else, I often lean toward Andariel's Visage, and there's reasons why. It's +2 to all skills. It's 20% increased attack speed. It has lifesteal. It has a massive 30 strength bonus, including a huge 70% poison resistance. And quite honestly, Andariel's Visage fits into so many builds, it's just silly. Not only can you put this on just about any mercenary and get decent effect out of it, even the Act 3 mercenary who doesn't attack with melee because it's +2 to all skills. It also works very well on paladins. It works very well on Amazons. It works very well on barbarians. If you have this sitting in your stash, there is more than a good chance that it's going to be better than whatever you have on. It, of course, can be socketed, and you can increase the attack speed even further with a 15% jewel from 20% to 35%. And you can add all sorts of other things in here, like in all resistances. You can counter the negative fire resistance. You can find this in its ethereal form, and in the ethereal form, it is one of the best mercenary helmets, known to man, and the 30 strength bonus that it has on it makes it absolutely excellent as a gap filler for a lot of characters to help you equip other pieces of equipment before you would otherwise be able to do so. In fact, you can usually use Andariel's Visage to equip your mercenary with something like an Ethereal Sacred Armor, which is 222 strength requirement. And that's why Andariel's Visage has made it all the way up to number 7 on the list. Moving on to number 6 on the list, we have a very sexy pair of boots. And these boots are known as the Gore Riders. The Gore Riders are probably one of the best melee or ranged boots that you can find, bar none. The truth of the matter is that it's really, really freaking hard as a melee or range character to turn down 15% crushing blow, 15% deadly strike, 10% open wounds, and 30% faster run walk. Even though there are some better boots, like for instance Goblin Toes that have more crushing blow, or things like War Travelers that have an increased min and max damage, when you take into account the fact that Gore Riders are just super freaking sexy and also have negative 25% requirements on them, which means you usually don't even need that much strength to put them on, they tend to be the best in slot for a lot of characters, including the assassin, the kick assassin, who would upgrade them into the Myrmidon Greaves and use them in her kicks. These pair of boots make it into so many builds and so many characters that it's really hard not to give them the number 6 spot. The only reason they didn't make it higher on this list is because there are items of even more versatility than the Gore Riders. However, if you ever find yourself a pair of Gore Riders, it's definitely worth hanging on to them. They are quite possibly, without a doubt, one of the most versatile and sought-after items in the game for any melee or ranged character. And even some spellcasters who may use them specifically for the ability to crushing blow, deadly strike, and open wounds, like an enchant sorceress, or perhaps even a, a necromancer using a bow. Who freaking knows what's going on? But the truth of the matter is if you need crushing blow, deadly strike, and open wounds, there's very few other items in the game that give you as great as an effect as Gore Riders do. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head that has really nice of most of those is the G-Face. But G-Face is a set item. Doesn't belong on this list. Next on the list, number 5 is actually a tie between 2 items. That's right, the Volcathos Wedding Band and the Stone of Jordan ring. These 2 rings are very similar in many regards, and it's very hard to rank one of these over the other, just simply because they are both extremely useful in their own specific ways. The Volcathos Wedding Band is a +1 to all skill ring that has 5% lifesteal and a very nice life based on character level, whereas the Stone of Jordan ring is a +1 to all skills ring, which has very nice mana and increased maximum mana. In any situation where your character has to have plus to skills on his or her ring slots, the Stone of Jordan ring and the Volcathos Wedding Band become choices for your character. And whether your character is more melee based and needs more lifesteal and life, or more mana based and needs more mana, these 2 choices are absolutely excellent choices for a lot of characters. I specifically have used Sojas and Volcathos rings in quite a large number of builds, because in a lot of builds you have to have as many plus to skills as you possibly can to make them worthwhile. If you were to give up the ring slot to something else, you would not get plus to skills, and then you would actually have to have your plus to skills somewhere else. But the thing is that when you're going for maximum plus to skills, you already have all the plus to skills everywhere else that you possibly can. So the Soj and the Volcathos Wedding Band are definitely very versatile items that are used across every single class, and honestly just about every single build in the game. There are very few builds in the game that would not benefit from a Soj or a Volcathos Wedding Band, and usually those are highly physical damage builds that are focusing more on things like maximum damage, life leech, mana leech, things that would otherwise increase their physical damage even further, like min damage and max damage, as well as the kind of more awkward abilities. And that's where Ravenfrost comes in, and you will find that a lot of characters will choose Ravenfrost over these rings because they have to have the cannot be frozen effect. However, this is also where other items come into play that also have cannot be frozen, like for instance the Death Sash, Trangul's Belt, and even Cham runes in a helmet or armor, so that you can utilize things like these rings instead. Moving on to the number 4 spot is a pair of gloves. That's right, number 4 is the Mage Fist Light Gauntlets. The Mage Fist Light Gauntlets made it to number 4 on the list because, quite honestly, they are the best faster cast gloves that you can have in the game. If you are any kind of character who utilizes faster cast, you only have one of 2 options, either Mage Fist Light Gauntlets or Trangle's gloves. And quite honestly, Mage Fists are the superior choice in most situations, which means that just about any character that utilizes any kind of casting, like an Elemental Druid, Fire or Ice, a casting Sorceress, Fire, Lightning, or Ice, a Hammerdin, a Fist of the Heavens Paladin, whatever it may be, even if you are a Warcry Barbarian, faster cast is something that you are going to need, and faster cast gloves specifically are something that your characters are more often than not going to use. So Mage Fists tend to be one of the best in slot items in the game for a lot of characters. Also, not only does Mage Fists have faster cast, it's not the only reason it made it to number 4 on the list, it also has +1 to fire skills, which works very well with a large number of builds, and it has a pretty decent amount of regeneration of mana, which can help a lot of characters sustain their mana pools later on in the game. Although Trangle's gloves has 30% cold resistance, I don't really feel like Trangs can outpace the very nice 35% or 25% regeneration of mana and the +1 to fire skills with the 20% faster cast, especially since the fire skills on a sorceress will give the sorceress even more regeneration by increasing her warmth spell. Just very, very nice gloves all around. They can be upgraded once or twice depending on your character's strength requirements, and you can get even more defense out of them in the long run. Now, Mage Fists are usually pretty rare early on in ladder, and they're actually very sought after in the very beginning of the ladder. Now, toward the end of the ladder, when everybody has gotten a pair of Trangs or Mage Fists, most people are not really searching for them that much anymore. But if you do find a pair of Mage Fists early on in a ladder season, I guess would be the right term, definitely hang on to them because they are certainly going to be worth trading, maybe for something else that you might need, even if you don't necessarily need the Mage Fists. Moving on to number 3 on the list is a crown, known as the Crown of Ages. The Crown of Ages is a particularly rare unique that is actually super duper sexy. It's customizable because it comes with 2 sockets, and it has a lot of very, very nice effects on it. It is +1 to all skills, including 30% faster hit recovery, which is absolutely amazing for a lot of characters. It also has 30 all resistances and 15% damage reduction, which means that you get a very sexy 15% reduction to all physical damage that comes into your character. With the combination of effects, even though no single effect on the helmet is that amazing, the fact of the matter is that the combination of effects is kind of insane. The Crown of Ages is often used in PvP with 2 Burr runes in the helmet so that you can increase the damage reduction even further. You can also do things like add 2 15% IAS jewels, 2 runes to increase the resistances even more. In fact, the versatility of the Crown of Ages helmet is absolutely insane. You could even put a negative requirements jewel in there to lower the 174 strength requirement down to a more manageable level. It is usable on melee characters, ranged characters. It is actually very nice on mercenaries. And all in all, the Crown of Ages is one of those things that when you do find it, you're pretty excited about finding it, especially if you find it in good condition. The Crown of Ages, unfortunately, does have some pretty terrible variables, and you may find the Crown of Ages in a very poor condition, and it's very sad when you do find a poor Crown of Ages, but it's also very exciting when you find a very sexy one. Moving on to number 2 on the list. I'm not sure if you can guess which one it is now. is the Harlequin Crest Shaco. The Harlequin Crest Shaco is probably one of the most versatile items in the game. Is it a best-in-slot item for every single character? No, not really. But the truth about the Harlequin Crest Shaco is that you can literally slap it on just about any character and get good use out of it. Not only does it work very well on just about any character you put it on, you can also utilize it as a very nice Magic Find piece of equipment, because socketing it with a Istrune or a Perfect Topaz will yield you a very nice 74 or 75% Magic Find. On a helmet with +2 skills, very nice amount of life and mana, and even a 10% damage reduced by. I often find myself in a situation where I don't utilize Harlequin Crest, despite the fact that it is a very amazing piece of equipment, and that is due to the fact that I don't usually play characters that use Harlequin Crest as their best in slot item. In fact, the majority of the time, when I have my character fully geared out, Harlequin Crest Shaco is very rarely ever the item that I choose as my end game piece of equipment. However, anytime I have a Harlequin Crest Shaco on a character that is not fully geared up, that is not in his endgame best-in-slot piece of equipment, it is a very versatile and useful piece of gear. And obviously, if I'm Magic Finding, it probably is best-in-slot, because how can you beat 74% Magic Find with +2 to all skills? There's very few items in the game that are going to be that good in terms of Magic Find and usefulness. And that's one of the reasons why Harlequin Crest has made it to the number 2 spot on the list. Finishing it off with our number 1 item, that is Mara's Kaleidoscope. Now, you might be asking yourself, why did I choose Mara's Kaleidoscope as my number 1 item on the list? Especially when technically you could have a much better crafted amulet specifically for your class. Well, the answer is because it is not for any specific class. Although those crafted amulets for a very specific class may very well beat out Mara's Kaleidoscope, you will also know that one of the more popular items that people love to use is the CTA, which is the ability to cast the battle orders and the battle command on yourself, right? Well, O skills specifically are only affected by all skills, not individual class skills. So anytime that you make yourself one of those absolutely sexy amulets that has like +2 sorceress with massive amounts of strength and all resistances and faster cast and all that, you are losing +2 skills to your CTA or any other O skill that you may be utilizing at that particular time. And so Mara's is not only a very versatile amulet specifically for any character who wants to put it on, it is also the only amulet really that you are going to use in any kind of O skill build where you want as many skill points as you can to an O skill ability. For instance, if you use Enigma with Teleport, Mara's will give +2 skills to Teleport, but a specific class amulet will not. If you're using CTA, Mara's again will give +2 skills to the CTA, whereas your +2 sorceress or +2 paladin amulet will not. This means that Mara's Kaleidoscope is literally one of the best in slot items for a lot of builds that involve any kind of O skill, like say for instance if you are a necromancer using full trangs and you're trying to get the most out of your meteor and firewall and fire mastery and so forth and so on. Again, Mara's becomes the best choice for that character. So as far as usefulness goes, Mara's is probably one of the most useful items in the game. You can literally put it on any character and you probably won't have very many complaints. Not only that, but it is the best in slot item for any kind of O skill build because you need +2 all skills, not +2 generic, or rather +2 specific skills. And that's why Mara's Kaleidoscope made it to the number 1 spot on this list. I hope that you enjoyed my top 16 uniques, and I hope you're not disappointed that your favorite unique didn't make it onto the list. I did take quite some time deliberating and skimming and condensing down this this list until I finally came to my my choices. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.
I'll put that to good use.
Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So today we have a special episode. This episode is the top 10 most underrated unique items in Diablo 2 Resurrected. The list has changed a little bit from Diablo 2 because obviously things have changed. Before we get started in the top 10, let us go over some items which I consider to be runner-ups, and those are the Night Smoke Belt and the Bloodfist Heavy Gauntlets. The Bloodfist Heavy Gauntlets are probably one of the most broken low-level items in Diablo 2 Resurrected, boasting a massive 30% faster hit recovery at a time when there are a lot of characters which are very poor in faster hit recovery, and a massive 40 life at only level 9. These honestly are just kind of insane gloves. They also have 10% increased attack speed on them too, if all that wasn't good enough. But honestly, the characters that really want to utilize these gloves are actually the characters that don't need increased attack speed. Early level sorceresses, early level necromancers, basically all of the characters that have absolutely god-awful faster hit recovery breakpoints and usually end up getting stuck in faster hit recovery loops, these are your go-to gloves. The 40 life combined with the 30% faster hit recovery will make your life so much easier as a low-level sorceress, for instance, which is one of the worst classes for faster hit recovery. Believe it or not, fully upgraded Bloodfist Heavy Gloves are actually best in slot for some characters. It may have changed a little bit ever since the shape-shifting druid has been adjusted, but they are still very, very nice gloves. We also have the Night Smoke Belt, which I feel like also is a very underrated unique because of the massive 50% damage take goes to mana. There's really not a lot going on for this belt. I mean, it does have a decent amount of all resistances with 10. It has a little bit of mana, it has decent defense, but really the clincher here is the 50% damage taken goes to mana. If you're a Whirlwind Barbarian, if you're a low-level Paladin who's utilizing Zeal, if you're any kind of character who doesn't necessarily want to have to steal mana to get that mana back, but you're in there getting beat on, basically any melee character whatsoever, and you want to have infinite mana, the Night Smoke Belt will literally give you infinite mana, because as long as you're in there getting beat, your mana will constantly be regenerating on a regular basis. And it works very well for Whirlwind Barbarians, because as you whirlwind through the monsters, they are hitting you, and as they are hitting you, they are regenerating your mana, and as you are whirlwinding, you are burning the mana, and you will literally never run out of mana if you're using a Night Smoke Belt. So let's go on to the list here. This list is not in any particular order, so don't assume that I'm saying, you know, like, this is the #1 on the list. No, this is just the top 10 in no specific order. And we're going to start out with a very interesting one, which is the Sword Guard Executioner's Sword. So the Sword Guard Executioner's Sword is a highly defensive item. It is primarily used by barbarians. In fact, I would pretty much say that that's probably the only class that would ever utilize this piece of equipment. But when you utilize this piece of equipment, you will notice that it just has massive defensive stats. And if used in combination with something like the Storm Shield, Monarch Shield, you really will have a amazing defensive character. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that you utilize this as your main hand weapon, but what you can do is you can have your offhand weapons, and then you can have a swap to, which is essentially your defensive set. And your defensive set would essentially be, you know, the way that you would dish out or take the damage. I mean, it has faster hit recovery, it has increased chance of blocking, it has 495 defense based on character level, 200 defense versus melee, 100 defense versus missile, all resistance is 20. And then on top of that, just like the Night Smoke Belt, it also has damage taken goes to mana. At any point, you could utilize this sword as an extreme defensive mechanic to save your life if something is going wrong. It also has a massive negative 50% requirements, which means that just about any barbarian can utilize this, even one who is running a very low strength and very low dex build. It can also be upgraded to the Colossus Blade to enhance its damage, and you could potentially find an ethereal version and Zod it to get even more damage out of it if you actually wanted to use it to kill things. But it is an excellent, excellent sword for defensive purposes. It is not an offensive sword. It is a swap to for defensive mechanics, and if used properly in that context, Sword Guard is actually an amazing weapon. Next on the list is the Shaft Stop Mesh Armor. Now, the Shaft Stop Mesh Armor is one of those uniques that on the surface it doesn't really seem like a whole lot. I mean, it doesn't have any alt resistances, it doesn't have any you know, like plus maximum life, but it does have a decent amount of life on it. It doesn't have any, you know, like interesting mechanics like a lot of armors do, like increased attack speed or faster hit recovery. But what it does have in a massive quantity is physical damage reduced by 30%, which is just absolutely insane. And in the ethereal form, the defense is massive, even at level 38. Putting this piece of equipment on a mercenary or a player can massively increase their survivability versus melee attacks, ranged attacks that are physical based, and in general just make it so that your mercenary or yourself can survive so much easier. With the addition of a socket and with the addition of upgrading the piece of equipment, you can make it into something that's even more amazing. For a player, of course, you would probably want the non-ethereal version, and you would probably want to put something like an Umrune in it. But for a mercenary, you would want to upgrade the ethereal version, and the ethereal version upgrades just so freaking well. And you can customize the piece of equipment, you know, to your own devising. Maybe you would like to put in, you know, an IAS jewel so that your mercenary attacks faster, or put in a ruby so that it has more life, or put in, you know, a shale rune so that it has more faster hit recovery. There are many options with the Shaft Stop armor, and quite honestly, it's just a beast of a piece of equipment. If you ever do find an ethereal Shaft Stop armor, you probably want to upgrade it, socket it, and put something nice in it and utilize it on a mercenary, because they are definitely solid pieces of equipment. Especially at level 38, as I said earlier, when you find this piece of equipment at level 38, it's just absolutely amazing for your character. Most of the time, you're not going to have something better at level 38 than a shaft stop for a melee character. Moving on, we also have some other interesting items here. One that I've actually come across quite a few times and was surprised at how well this item works. And this is the Flesh Ripper Fanged Knife. The Flesh Ripper Fanged Knife is an extremely fast, extremely nice weapon for a lot of characters. I've recently utilized one in a Whirlwind Barbarian to great effect. It can also be utilized as an offhand for a smiter. The sheer number of effects that the Flesh Ripper Fang Knife has is amazing. I mean, it has negative 50% targets defense, which makes it insanely easier to hit the targets. 25% crushing blow, 33% deadly strike, 50% chance of open wounds, prevent monster heal, and even slows target by 20%. All of which are just absolutely amazing to have on a weapon. And even if you're just utilizing this as an offhand on a Frenzy Barbarian, or maybe you're utilizing this as a a main hand weapon on a Smite Paladin, there are a lot of different choices that you can have for this. You can find the ethereal version, and you can put a Zod rune in it, and you can utilize it for a Blade Fury, Blade Shield, Blade Sentinel Assassin. You don't even have to put a Zod rune in it, as long as you only stick to Blade Fury. And there are a couple characters, actually, that don't burn durability and can use the ethereal version without a Zod in it. And the non-ethereal version actually works really well if you put a Shale rune in it for a little bit of increased attack speed. And basically what you're getting out of this is you're getting a weapon that is applying all of these beautiful effects. I mean, how can you not like 25% crushing blow, 33% deadly strike, 50% open wounds, prevent monster heal, and slows target by, all in one nice, neat little package. And it actually does a pretty decent amount of damage as well, which is pretty sweet. The only real downside to the Flesh Ripper Fang Knife is the range of the item. But if you're using it as an offhand smiter weapon, which is what I like to do, the range doesn't matter, because you're smiting, you're hitting with your shield, you're not hitting with your weapon, so the range of this doesn't matter. The durability does, however, so you will eventually break this if you're using it as an offhand smiting weapon, and that's where the ethereal Zodded version comes in, because it's interesting. Because it's a dagger, it's already extremely fast, so even just an additional 20% IAS is more than enough. In fact, I'm pretty sure that you can hit the maximum breakpoint with the Flesh Ripper Fang Knife fairly easily. Moving on to the next item on the list is the Moser's Blessed Circle. The Moser's Blessed Circle is one of these crazy unique items that you find, and it doesn't really seem like a whole lot when you first find it. But quite honestly, it's probably one of the best shields that you can just toss onto a character and fix your resistances or whatever it is that you need to do. Because it has two sockets, always two sockets, it is highly customizable. You could, for instance, put 2 diamonds in it, which is one of the easiest things that you can do. And now all of a sudden you've got an all resistance 63 shield with very nice block rate. Moser's Blessed Circle also upgrades very well because the block chance goes up when you upgrade it by quite a bit, and can be utilized all the way through Nightmare and Hell difficulty with great effect. Moser's Blessed Circle is one of those really nice items that you'll find all the time, and it's definitely nice to have one sitting around to throw on a character to help fix your resistances. 63 all-res is kind of hard to beat at level 31, and for most characters, it's going to fix your resistances for quite some time. Another item on the list is the Azure Wrath Phase Blade. The Azure Wrath Phase Blade has a lot of amazing effects on it, and if you happen to find an Azure Wrath, it is kind of insane of an item, especially if you don't have much better at that particular time. There are a couple reasons for this, and I'm kind of going to go over them. So the first, right off the bat, is the level requirement on this is wrong for some reason. It's level 85. I don't know why it says level 54. I have to check my files. It has the Sanctuary Aura. So the Sanctuary Aura actually strips physical immunity from undead monsters. So any undead monster that you come across will, number one, take insanely higher amount of physical damage, and number two, if they are immune, there's a very good chance that you will break the physical immunity of the undead monster, which makes Azure Wrath a very amazing item to utilize in Chaos Sanctuary. It also has a very nice speed as well. Because it is a phase blade, it's already very fast at a negative 30 base, and it has an amazing 30% increased attack speed on it as well, which makes it extremely fast of a weapon. You're going to need very little increased attack speed to hit the max breakpoint with this particular item. We also have a massive amount of cold and magic damage. And as I talked about previously in one of my other videos, magic damage is one of those amazing things that, since most monsters have literally no resistances to magic damage, it's like 3 times the rated value in concert to something like the cold damage. So if we're talking about the cold damage, most monsters have cold resistances. They have anywhere between 20 to like 90% cold resistances, and not counting, of course, the ones that are immune. And so when you are playing through the game, that cold resistance is constantly being cut by half, or sometimes even more than half, sometimes by 75%. So that rated value, the 500 cold damage, is not anywhere near as good as the 500 magic damage, which is almost always going to be applying as its full rated value. There are very few monsters that actually do have a resistance to cold to magic damage, and guess what? They're undead. So usually, when you come across an undead monster who is immune to magic, immune to the 500 magic damage on the item, your Sanctuary Aura is going to basically annihilate them. The only real downside to this item, in my opinion, is the Sanctuary Aura's knockback. Sometimes, especially in Chaos Sanctuary, you can accidentally knock Grand Visor of Chaos off the platform, and then he doesn't drop anything, which is kind of sad. All in all, though, Azure Wrath is one of those items that if you get your hands on it and you don't have, like a freaking Last Wish or a Grief Sword or something like that just sitting around, Azure Wrath can very easily carry you through Hell difficulty with ease. Moving on to the next item, because we have quite a few here, is the Inferno Stride Demon Hide Boots. The Inferno Stride Demon Hide Boots are something that before 2.4 wasn't like super duper amazing. I mean, they're okay boots, but after 2.4, now that they have the 5% chance to cast level 8 Blaze Wind Struck, Blaze has been modified to give you faster run walk in addition to the fire effect. So as you level up Blaze, you get a very nice level of faster run walk every single level up to the level of level 8. And just to show you guys real quick on the character, we have a Blaze right here, which is level 15, and it has a faster run walk speed of 32%. The other thing to consider here, though, which is rather interesting, is that the faster run walk that it gives you is outside of the normal faster run walk breakpoint. It's kind of hard to give people an accurate number, because even though it says 18% faster run walk here as a level 8 Blaze, so that's our number, it is a lot more than that. When you have faster run walk on, for instance, your boots, that is a separate calculation than faster run walk that's given to you from, say, Frenzy or Blaze or Vigor. These things are considered like skill-based faster run walk. Skill-based faster run walk and item-based faster run walk are separate calculations. So when you see the 18% increased faster run walk speed here, it's actually a lot higher than just simply 18%. It's going to make your character run around like Sanic the Hedgehog. We also have some other interesting items here on the list. One of them is the Guardian Angel Templar Coat. The Guardian Angel Templar coat can be found in two forms. You can find it in its ethereal form, and you can also find it in its non-ethereal form. The Guardian Angel Templar coat is made for paladins, yes, and that +1 to paladin is the one thing that does not transfer between characters. But ignoring the +1 to paladin, we have an armor which is extremely defensive, much in the same way that the Sword Guard Executioner's sword is extremely defensive. This Guardian Angel Templar coat is also extremely defensive. We have 30% faster block rate, 20% increased chance of blocking, both of which are absolutely amazing to make your character tankier. And then on top of that, we've got a huge defensive number, especially in the ethereal version, of 1,236, combined with an amazing +15 to all maximum resistances, which means that no matter what character you put this on, if you're putting it on a character that has a decent amount of resistances, you're going to bring your resistances up above the cap, which is absolutely amazing. Let me bring my character just to Nightmare difficulty, just so I can show you, because she is missing most of her equipment here. I'm not really sure where I stripped all her equipment to, but it is gone. As you can see here, my caps are all 75%. And as soon as I put on the Guardian Angel Templar coat, all my caps are now 90%, and I'm capable of resisting 90% of damage from elements. In the ethereal version, you can utilize this on mercenaries to great effect to help protect them from pretty much everything. If you take this, for instance, and you pair it up with a Kira's Guardian, I believe it's the Diadem or Circlet or Tiara or whatever it is. It has all resistances and cannot be frozen, and the all resistances from Kira's combined with the maximum resistances from the Guardian Angel Templar coat will make your mercenary have an amazing resistance level. As you can see here in Nightmare difficulty, he doesn't need the Kira's, but he's sitting at 90% all res. And this is one of the ways that you can make your mercenary incredibly tanky. Now, of course, you can also upgrade the Guardian Angel Templar coat, and it upgrades amazingly, and the defense is extremely nice on the ethereal version. So if you ever find a very nice ethereal Guardian Angel Templar coat, don't throw it away. Hold on to that bad boy. They have some very amazing uses, especially in Trav farmers. Trav farmers love Guardian Angel Templar coats because there's so much elemental damage being slung around in a Trav farm. You got the Hydras, you've got the cold damage, you've got the lightning damage, you've got the poison damage, all of which is trying to kill your mercenary, and you don't want your mercenary to die if you're Trav farming. And so Guardian Angel Templar coat is an amazing one for Trav farming. Of course, you can socket it with like a 15% IAS jewel to make him attack faster. You could put an rune in there so that he has more resistances. There are a lot of different options for the Guardian Angel Templar coat. And it's not just for mercenaries. If any character really can get good use out of the Guardian Angel Templar coat, because number one, it's going to increase their maximum resistances to 90%, which is amazing. And number two, it also can help you with your faster blocking and your increased chance of blocking. So if you do, for instance, want to be like a blocking sorceress or something like that, it's going to allow you to get your block chance a lot higher, a lot easier. For instance, let me go ahead and reset her because she's running 260 dexterity. And at 260 dexterity, she's at 75% block chance. But if I were to reset her, and let's just give her enough strength so she can utilize her shield, and now she has a 19% block chance. If I throw Guardian Angel Templar coat on, now I'm at 26% block chance. Just like that, by putting on just one piece of equipment. And I won't have to build my dexterity anywhere near as high to get that 75%, because the very nice extra block chance that it's giving me means that I don't need to. As you can see before, I had a huge amount of dexterity, but now I only have 197 to hit that 75% block chance. If I take it off, though, I go back down to 55% block chance, and that is a huge difference between 75 and 55% just for putting on one piece of equipment. So as you can imagine, not only are we getting super nice extra block chance, we're getting faster block rate, which is going to help our block breakpoints, and then we also get our amazing plus maximum resistances, which could make us extremely tanky. Guardian Angel Templar Coat is definitely a very, 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 very amazing item. Next on the list, we have Craint Vomir. Craint Vomir is an item that made it onto this list because of its kind of amazing statistics for a Frenzy Barbarian. In fact, you know what? Let me go to a Frenzy Barbarian specifically for that purpose. Alright, so this item is the Craint Vomir, which I believe means Fear Vomit. Yeah, let that stick in your mind. Fear Vomit, the Fear Vomit Espandon. So this weapon is kind of an amazing one because it has 20% faster run walk on it. It has 50% increased attack speed, which is amazing. 50% is a lot of percent. We also have a pretty decent damage on this with slows target 35%, negative 70 monster defense per hit, and then on top of all that, if that wasn't enough, it also has a pretty massive 10% damage reduced by, which if used in combination with a second one would give you a 20% damage reduction to all incoming physical damage. And if you were to pair it up with something like a Shaft Stop, for instance, you would have a total of 50% damage reduction with just 3 items. You wouldn't need to wear something like a Rockstopper Sallet, a string of ears, or anything like that. I mean, you literally have 50% damage reduction right here with just 3 items. With a relatively low level of level 42, it actually comes in pretty handy on a Frenzy Barbarian. Unfortunately, it can't be utilized on the new Frenzy Merc because he can only use one-handed items, which is kind of sad. But not like a huge big deal. But the combination of all the effects on this weapon make it a very interesting weapon for either a offhand or just simply doubling up 2 of them. We're talking about a huge increase in the speed of your character, not only the run and walk speed of your character, but also the speed that you swing at, including the speed that the monster runs at, because now he's going to be slower. So you're moving faster, the monster's moving slower, and they're doing less damage to you. This weapon, of course, can be upgraded to the Elite version, and it can also be Zodded in the Ethereal version. And with a pretty decent amount of damage of 225 to 423 two-handed, and 99 to 252 one-handed, it's actually not a bad offhand weapon for defensive purposes. I mean, you've got to imagine that if you're taking 10% less damage, the monster is moving 35% slower, and you are moving 20% faster. All of this is going to come in handy to help keep you alive. On top of that, you've also got negative 70 monster defense per hit, which also means that you're going to be landing more blows on your targets. It could also be a very interesting item to combine with other defensive pieces, specifically for a very highly defensive character. It really kind of works out on Sanic the Hoochag, because Sanic the Hoochag, well, you know, he likes to run fast. That's his whole job in life. He even has a burst of speed, because why not? And he runs Frenzy. Where's my Frenzy at? Why do I not have Frenzy? Sanic the Hoochag needs Frenzy. Sanic the Hoochag is all about running fast. That's his entire goal in life. He doesn't have any other goal. He just wants to run fast. Like this. Sorry, every time I'm on Sanic the Hoochag, I can't control myself. I just have to run fast. It's very important. I keep hitting roadblocks, though. It's very difficult to control Sanic the Hoochag speed. I mean, it's kind of like being the Flash and then just like running straight into a wall by accident because you're so fast you can't control your speed. Anyway, Craint Vomir is definitely an underrated weapon for sure. It's one of those items that just it's a very interesting defensively, and it's also very interesting offensively as well. And utilized on a barbarian in combination with, say, another very nice weapon in the other offhand slot, you can definitely get some very nice good use out of it. It's also very pretty too. I don't know if you've ever actually looked at the Craint Vomir, but it's a very pretty sword. Let me put on the non-ethereal version so you can really see it. It's just a really cool looking sword. Moving on, though, to the next item on the list is the Head Striker Sword. So the Head Striker Sword is one that I believe gets underestimated a lot, just simply because it has such simple statistics. When you look at it, it doesn't necessarily seem like a whole lot. I mean, it has max damage based on character level, and especially on a lower level character, you might not necessarily realize that that max damage based on character level is pretty massive and continues to rise with you as you level up your character. It also has Deadly Strike based on character level, which will double your physical damage, which is also just amazing. And then the Prevent Monster Heal, of course, is also nice to have on there as well, because it just makes it a lot easier to kill targets that aren't regenerating. But the real beauty of the Head Striker is when you find the Ethereal version, because the Ethereal version can be upgraded into the Conquest Sword, and it is honestly one of the highest damage weapons that you can possibly put on the two-handed Act 5 Barbarian, and it also works extremely well on the new Frenzy Barbarian. Deadly Strike is just massive. Having a 100% Deadly Strike means that every single attack that you make will deal double damage no matter what. And utilizing this, especially on characters that do not have Deadly Strike, is one of the best uses of the Head Striker Sword. Take, for instance, a Paladin, a Druid. Those characters are melee characters that really have absolutely no form of critical strike or deadly strike inherent to their character. So having a 100% deadly strike weapon to dish out your damage even harder and even faster, is definitely a good thing. The ethereal version doesn't even really need a Zod rune, because most of the time you're going to be utilizing it on a mercenary. The non-ethereal version is also actually pretty good at level 39 and can carry you very well through nightmare difficulty all the way up into hell. And if you upgrade it into the Conquest Sword, it actually works pretty good in hell difficulty too. The only real downside to using this in hell difficulty is when you encounter physical immunes, you're going to have another way of dishing out damage to those physical immunes. Deadly Strike, however, does not work on things like Vengeance because of the way that it converts damage, so keep that in mind. And then on top of that, it has 15 extra strength on there so that you could utilize more equipment, especially if you're putting this on a mercenary who needs extra strength. The 15 extra strength may help them put on a piece of armor or a helmet that they need at any given time, which is always nice to have. And then last, I think, on my list, I'm not 100% sure. Let me double check my list here. Yep, Inferno Shrines, Shaft Stop, Sword Guard, Moses' Blessed Circle, Azure Wrath, Guardian Angel, Head Striker, Crane Vomir, Flesh Ripper, and last but not least, the Rockstopper Salad. The Rockstopper Salad is is one of those crazy items that just kind of gets thrown to the side for some reason that people don't really understand is actually insane. Especially if you can find a Rockstopper in its perfect form. So the Rockstopper does have some rather terrible rolls. It rolls between, like 20 and 40 cold and like 20 and 40 lightning and like 30 and 50 fire and so forth and so on. And so sometimes when you find it, it's in a really poor condition. But the Rockstopper has an amazing defensive capability to just like almost completely fix a character's defenses. Number one is the 30% faster hit recovery, which will do very well to fix many characters' problems. Even a sorceress, you could even utilize this on a sorceress to help keep your faster hit recovery in check. As we talked about earlier with the Blood Fist Heavy Gauntlets, 30% faster hit recovery is a lot of faster hit recovery and is going to increase your faster hit recovery breakpoint massively. We also have a very nice defense on this helmet with a rather low strength requirement, which means most characters can put this helmet on with ease. We also have 15 vitality on here to give you extra life, which of course is going to vary depending on the character that puts this on, but it's still a very nice amount of extra life. Then we get 40% cold resistance, 40% lightning resistance, 50% fire resistance, which will actually help to offset the spirit shield. And then we also have a damage reduced by of 10%, and it can be socketed, and you can add even more niceness into this. You could put an rune for even higher resistances. You could put an IAS jewel for 15% IAS. You could even put a shale rune in here, and you could cap off the faster hit recovery to 50%, and you probably wouldn't need faster hit recovery from any other source. You can utilize this on a mercenary to make your mercenary incredibly tanky. You could also utilize this with other damage reduced by pieces of equipment to get your damage reduced by up to the 50% cap. The Craint Vomir has 10%, and this is 10. That's 20. If you were using 2 Craint Vomirs, that's 30% right there. Or if you paired it along with a Shaft Stop, you could have very easily 40% damage reduction very, very quickly. And on a mercenary, for instance, that would be an extremely nice tank option to make your mercenary a lot tankier versus those evil monsters that are trying to murder them. It actually has a pretty decent amount of resistances too, which means that number one, you've got a really nice amount of faster hit recovery to help your merc keep your merc from getting locked into those faster hit recovery stun locks. And then on top of that, now he's got 40% damage reduction. So even when he is getting hit, he's not going to get hit that hard. And the extra resistances on top of all that is going to make sure that he's not getting annihilated by the elemental damage. Rockstopper Saleh is definitely a very, very nice one to hang on to, and that's the reason why it's made it into the top 10 most underrated uniques. I think we've covered everything, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Top 10 Most Underrated Uniques. If I missed a unique, put it down in the comments. I'd like to hear what you think is one of the most underrated uniques. Tell me what time you used one of these items to the utmost value. Like solo self-found playthroughs. Those are, I think, where a lot of these items really shine. Because if you happen to find an amazing shaft stop on a solo self-found run, it can literally change the way that your character plays. Same thing for something like the Rockstopper Saleh or the Moser's Blessed Circle. A lot of these items will come in extremely handy on solo self-found characters. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and keep watching.
Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So today I wanted to introduce a special video just for those of you who continue to ask this question. How to keep my merc alive. That's right, this is the how to keep my merc alive video. So buckle up, because we've got a lot of things to go over, and if you're really interested in how to keep, in the topic of how to keep your merc alive, I'm going to go over everything that you need to know to make your merc stronger, more survivable, and give him the best chance of, living. I'm also going to go over some reasons why he might not live despite your best efforts, and that is unfortunate, but it is coded into the game, so there's really not much you can do about it. So first off, what is the first and most important thing, and I am actually doing these in sort of in order of importance, and that is faster hit recovery. That's right. Faster hit recovery is the most important thing that you can do for your mercenary. And you might be asking why? Why is faster hit recovery the most important thing that you can do? Well, we're going to go over that. So, I have a graphic here. Ah, yes, graphics. So if we read at the top of this graphic, it says the hit recovery counter is triggered by any hits that take off more than 1/12 of your character's maximum hit points. When this happens, your character is knocked into a hit stun animation, which must be completed before you can take another action. Characters or mercs or monsters may be stunned repeatedly, trapping them in a stun lock. A very dangerous situation. There are also a variety of skills for players and monsters that can cause a target to be stunned. Other skills and spells effects can cause all hits to stun while they are in effect. So, it actually gets a little bit more complicated than this, and I need you guys to know that 1/12 of your character's maximum hit points is not the end-all be-all of what this is. It actually, the percentage chance of a faster hit recovery stun, or a FHR stun, as I like to call them, happening, increases with the amount of damage that you do and decreases with the amount of damage you do. For instance, if you did 1/8 of a character's maximum hit points, there would be a much smaller probability of an FHR stun. Or if you did a 1/24 of a character's hit points, you're going to have a very high chance of that triggering. It actually does matter how much damage you do, and the more damage you do, the more chance that a FHR stun will proc. And as you can see here by the chart, we have all of the characters, and we have their particular faster hit recovery breakpoints. So faster hit recovery breakpoints is how long it takes for you to recover from a faster hit recovery stun. Basically, there's an animation that plays, and this is how many frames it takes for your character to recover from that animation. So for instance, in the case of the slowest of the characters of the sorceress, if she is running 0% faster recovery, she is at 15 frames recovery speed, which is why the sorceress ends up getting stun locked all the damn time in early levels, because without faster hit recovery of any type, at 0, she is the most vulnerable to faster hit recovery stun locks, as was displayed up here in the top, literally boldened in red. Now this stun lock is extremely deadly, and not only is it extremely deadly, but it also prevents you from being able to do anything to defend yourself. So number 1, you're stuck. Number 2, you can't defend yourself. And number 3, there's no way out. All right. So having an appropriate amount of faster hit recovery is very important for characters as well as mercenaries. Now, when you take a look at the faster hit recovery breakpoints for the mercenaries, what you will see is that the Act 2 mercenary is exactly the same breakpoints as the sorceress, which is terrible. This is because the Act 2 mercenary has literally one of the worst breakpoints as far as faster hit recovery goes. The only one that beats the Act 2 mercenary and the sorceress is the Act 3 mercenary, which is the caster class of the mercs. And it's really a big deal here, because if you don't have any faster hit recovery on your Act 2 mercenary, there's a very good chance he's going to get stuck in stun locks and he's going to die. Now, why is this an issue with Act 1, Act 2, and Act 5 mercenaries, but not necessarily as much with the Act 3 mercenary? Because the Act 1, the Act 2, and the Act 5 mercenaries all can sustain themselves through lifesteal, okay? When you are stuck in a FHR stun lock, you can't attack. And because you can't attack, you can't lifesteal. So all that wonderful damage and all that wonderful lifesteal that your mercenary has is useless when he gets stuck in one of these FHR stun locks. And this is why the mercs die so quickly, is because they can't fight back. In many, many situations, you will find that your mercenary is just stuck in one of these ridiculous loops of getting knocked back or stunned over and over and over again, and the solution is to give him some faster hit recovery items. Any faster hit recovery is better than none. As you can see with the Act 3 mercenary, a mere 20% brings him from 15 frames to 11, which is a pretty big bump. Only 20% fast hit recovery has a huge benefit to his survivability. But look at our friend the Act 5 mercenary. The Act 5 mercenary's fast hit recovery breakpoints are a 0 is a 9. For the Act 2 mercenary to even approach 9, he needs 42% faster hit recovery increase, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty hard to get your mercenaries faster hit recovery up to those kind of levels. But in the same situation, the Act 5 mercenary with a mere 48% is now at 5 frames and is literally right up there with the assassin and the barbarian for faster hit recovery breakpoints, which means he's recovering from faster recovery stuns extremely quickly. He's getting back into the action, he's hitting his target, he's stealing his life, and he's not vulnerable. And this is the most important thing, is that this faster hit recovery stun really just represents extreme vulnerability at very specific moments. Now, I'm going to take you over to some of my characters. I'm going to show you how I have them set up. So first off, let's go take a look at Pyrotechnics. Pyrotechnic is running a Act 3 mercenary, and because the Act 3 mercenary has the worst faster hit recovery breakpoints in the game, I've actually kind of prioritized him to have a very high faster hit recovery. So he is currently running 130%, and he's actually going to get a little bit higher because I'm going to socket K. Hagen's with a 7% faster hit recovery jewel. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because if you take a look at the chart, my Act 3 Mercenary's faster hit recovery breakpoint is 133. So being at 130% does him no good. He needs to be a little bit higher. He needs to be 3% higher to get that final 7-frame faster hit recovery breakpoint, which is going to help him immensely because he is a caster type that runs away. And so it's very important to remember that if he's trying to run away and he gets stuck in a stun lock, he's not going to be able to run away, and he's going to die. So I need him to be pushing out damage. I need him to be running away when he needs to. I need him to be, to be survivable. I don't want him to die on a regular basis. He also has 87% faster cast, and the reason why he's at 87% faster cast is because he has an 86% breakpoint. And he cannot go any higher than that 86% breakpoint, so there's no reason to bring him higher than 86%, really. So I actually measured out his faster cast rate to the point where he's getting the exact amount that he needs. We can also go take a look at some of my other characters. So, for instance, I also have... I also have the North Star Paladins mercenary, which the North Star Paladins mercenary is a little different. He's actually set up for a specific purpose, but he should also have some faster hit recovery as well. They usually do have some form of faster hit recovery, and if they don't, they usually end up dying on a regular basis. And my boy here is currently at 0, unfortunately. And this is because he is a very specific mercenary for a very specific purpose. I built him for a double regen, and I think I'm going to have to maybe swap out Andariel's for a Bulwark or something like that so he can actually get a little bit of faster hit recovery. But Bulwark was not available at the time when I made this mercenary, which is unfortunate. Which brings me to the next topic, and this is the one that I feel is the most important, and that is Life Leech. So Life Leech is probably the second most important thing that you can do for a mercenary. And the reason why Life Leech is so important is because it allows the mercenary a way to recover hit points when they wouldn't otherwise normally be able to. And this comes down to your equipment loadout. So, for instance, my mercenary right now is utilizing several pieces of equipment. One of them has to be on this character because I am running a prayer merc that is utilizing the meditation aura, so he has no other choice other than to use an insight polearm. The insight polearm does not have Life Leech. So he needs Life Leech from another source. And if he doesn't get his Life Leech from another source, then he's going to be SOL. In this particular case, he's getting his Life Leech from number 1, the Andariel's Visage, and number 2, also the Chains of Honor, which I'm pretty sure the Chains of Honor is literally just on him because I had it sitting around from another character. So I wouldn't think too much of it. Because if it was made specifically for him, I would have chosen an ethereal base, right? I also have some of my other characters, like for instance, my newest one, Pyrotechnic and Spicy Arrows. Spicy Arrows is actually utilizing a a very specific setup, and so she's forced to use a very specific piece of equipment. So, for instance, I wanted her to have the Cure helmet because this girl does use Energy Shield, and poison tends to be one of the biggest enemies to that particular thing. So I have a Cure helmet on. She also needs the piercing effect, so she needs the 50% piercing, or eventually upgrade to a mist bow so she gets 100% piercing. But she is kind of locked into her equipment choices, which only leaves the armor as the available option for choices. One very good armor for Life Leech is the Bone Flesh Templar Code, which is an upgrade from the Plate Mail. And an ethereal Bone Flesh Templar Coat makes a very good choice for a Life Leech armor early on, and also later, just not end game. It's not really usually one that you put on your Merc for end game stuff, because it lacks some of the more interesting things like all resistances, crushing blow, and other things that you might want on your mercenary at that particular time. But it makes a very good stopgap piece because, number one, it has high defense, and number two, it has Life Leech, which allows me to use other pieces in the head and weapon slots. Next on the list is another one that is very important, and this one is damage. So you might not be thinking about this one in terms of importance for keeping your mercenary alive. You might be thinking, oh, well, how much damage he does, why does that have to do with how I keep my mercenary alive? Well, damage is directly proportionate to how much he receives in lifesteal back. So having all the Life Leech in the world, having 100% Life Leech on your mercenary is meaningless if he doesn't put out any damage to actually get life back. One of the most common things I see on a regular basis is people will make themselves an Insight polearm. Generally an Insight polearm in a very low and very crappy base. Something that is unfortunately not worthy of even being used, just simply for the benefit of having that meditation aura. But the problem is that without Life Leech and without damage to take advantage of that Life Leech, your mercenary is most likely going to die. So when you make your Insight in something really crappy like a Scythe or a regular Halberd or something like that, and you're in hell difficulty and your mercenary is trying to pump out the damage that he needs to survive, he's not going to. To give you a very clear example, I could take this particular mercenary and bring him to Frigid Highlands right now, and he is currently set up with a very high damage and a very high amount of Life Leech. So as long as I have at least the damage and the Life Leech together, he is most likely going to have an easier time surviving. But remember earlier when I showed you that my mercenary had no faster hit recovery? Look at how quickly he died in a situation where the faster hit recovery mattered. He got stuck in a faster hit recovery loop and he died. So having all of the Life Leech and having all of the damage isn't enough if he can't actually hit the target. This is why faster hit recovery is at the top of the list. Life Leech is below that, and damage is at the number 3 spot, because you need the faster hit recovery so that he can attack, you need the Life Leech so he can steal, and you need the damage so that the Life Leech can actually do something. And this is why this particular mercenary is just not quite up to spec. Now, normally he doesn't have to fight alone, and this is also a very important thing to remember with mercenaries, is that if you're a melee character, you're going to be in there with him. Or if you're a necromancer, he's going to have things by his side, so he's not always going to be the center of attention. For instance, if I took him back out here and I put myself in harm's way, he would be able to work relatively easily on his own, while the mercenary, while I'm basically the center of attention for what's going on. So it does matter. The faster recovery does matter, but really only when he's the focus of the damage. And so, like, as a necromancer, you might not care so much because the necromancers have so many minions and so much of an army spreading all around that generally your mercenary is pretty safe. However, if you're a sorceress that's trying to use your mercenary to tank and you're not going to be in there with him, then faster recovery is all the more important for those particular reasons. And so you need a healthy mix of all three of these things. You need a healthy mix of fast hit recovery, a healthy mix of Life Leech, and a healthy mix of damage. Now, there are more ways to deal with faster hit recovery stuns than just pumping faster hit recovery. And that leads me into the next most important thing, which is defense. So you might be wondering, why is defense one of the most important things on the list? Isn't defense one of the least important stats in the game, as everyone likes to say? And the answer is no, it's really not. Defense is actually extremely important, and most characters only feel the sting of defense when it's not there. When you have the defense, you don't realize how important it is, but when you have none, when your defense is relatively low, things get nasty. And as you can see, my mercenary has about 2,793 defense, which isn't amazing. If we go over to some of my other mercenaries that are running ethereal equipment, they actually have much higher. Like, for instance, if I take a look at Pyrotechnics, Pyrotechnic is currently using all ethereal equipment, I believe, except for the helmet, which does need to be upgraded. And so he's running 3,635, which is definitely a much higher number than my Act 2 mercenary at this particular moment. And that's because he has an ethereal Spirit Monarch, an ethereal K-Hagens that's been upgraded to an Archon plate, and the Flickering Flame also needs to be an ethereal item, which I'll work on eventually.